Check. Test 1, 2, 3. Right. I think I've got everything all set up and ready to go. How's it going, Crackalacken? Yes, hopefully we're not killing any Kerbals. We'll see how forgiving we make the settings, but definitely abusing Kerbals and exerting massive amounts of G-forces on them. I've got a mod that has you start with unmanned flight, and so we might not actually have any manned flights for a while. We'll be launching probes mostly, but we might get to manned missions today. I might wait another minute to see if anybody else shows up, but it's the middle of the day on a Monday, so who knows? Most people are probably working. But I'm going to walk through some of the mods that I have, and then we'll jump into the career playthrough. Build, fly, and dream. Amen to that. This has been one of my favorite games for a long time. It's incredibly satisfying to just put something in orbit, and that's like just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you can do with this game. So I'm very excited to play. Let's close out the stream countdown since I'm here now. And I will open up the CCAN window. So this is, I'm trying to remember what it stands for, but it's, yes, I love that mod too. It's called ScanSat, and I have it installed. So I'm not going to talk through every single one of these because there's quite a few. Can I zoom in? I don't think I can zoom in. But I just kind of wanted to show everybody what mods I have so that people can make a similar playthrough if they're interested or something else. But I'm just gonna walk through them, and anything that I find to be interesting, I'll talk about it. A lot of them are just simple quality of life stuff. They don't actually do that much, but over the years, I've kind of put together the mods that I really like to play with, and for me, I'm like, I can't play without this anymore. So a lot of these are just quality of life. Quality of life. Amp year lets you control batteries for interplanetary missions a lot better. There's a lot of just better blank mods. Bon Voyage is a big one. This one allows you to set rovers to travel while you're not watching them. So I previously, before getting this mod, would never ever build a rover because driving them from one biome to the next would take literally, I mean, half an hour, 5 hours. I've seen pictures of people on Reddit where they put a weight on the W key so that it'll drive in a straight line. And I'm like, that doesn't sound fun to me. That's not what NASA would do. So Bon Voyage lets you just set a waypoint and your rover will drive there over time automatically, paying attention to the speed that it should go based on the wheels and the solar panels that you have. So I really like that one. It makes rovers actually fun to build. Bunch of other stuff that lets you modify the science multipliers for celestial bodies, which is important long term. I may have to mess with some of those settings because I've got a couple mods that might play weird. A bunch of contract ones. ComNet gives you info on the antennas. Community tech trees, kind of a must for modded parts. Bunch of different contract packs. We'll see how many of those I use, but I like to have them on. Let's see. Cryo tanks go with cryogenic engines, along with a lot of the near future mods, which Nertia has created a nice suite of mods. I don't end up using them a ton, but they are really cool when I do. And I may have to... Yeah, I think I have to modify one of the CFG files to make the procedural liquid tanks be able to be cryo tanks using the electric charge to not lose liquid hydrogen, because that takes energy in Nertia's mods. But if you put the mixture into the procedural liquid tanks, then it doesn't cost energy, which is kind of broken, so you can actually fix that. D-Magic Science, stuff to get more science experiments, docking port alignment, classic. Editor extensions. This one right here, extended information about scientific experiments, is really nice because it tells you with different science experiments what situations you can actually use them in, like low orbit, high orbit, atmospheric, stuff like that. What else? A bunch of random stuff. Infernal Robotics, I'm not sure if that'll even work, but I'd like to have it if I can. I might just uninstall that one, though, if it doesn't work. JNSQ is the main one. It's a planet pack. It changes the core Kerbal system to be much larger. So it's harder to get into orbit, it's harder to get to the moon, it's harder to get to Minmus, and it adds a bunch of new planets and moons and rearranges a couple of the pre-existing ones. So it's something kind of between... It says it's more advanced than the Galileo planet pack, which is the one I used to use. But it also uses some of the stock planet names and systems, even though it changes the sizes and gravity and all that. A bunch more part mods like Kerbal Atomics, Kerbal Engineer Redux for all sorts of information. We'll have to spend a while setting that up. This is a simulation mod that lets you test out. Basically, like a rover is what I usually use this for, because it's really annoying to make a rover mission and then you land it on the planet and find out it doesn't even work right. So this will let you like immediately test your craft, basically landed on the surface of the moon or something, so you could just see if your rover actually works. Bunch of other things. Let's see. The near future mods, procedural parts mods, probes before crew is the mod pack that I'm using. Or I mean the technology rearranger mod that I'm using. Let's see. Just a bunch of popular mods. Procedural parts, part angle display, part commander. Just helps you figure stuff out. Precise maneuver is kind of interesting because I'm playing the newest Kerbal Space Program update. They say they've added a stock maneuver editor, so it'll be interesting to see if this still works or just crashes. I don't even know. The game's probably going to crash 18 times, but that's the one I always used to use. We'll see if the one that comes with the game is any good. Real shoot for better parachutes, scatterer for stuff that JNSQ needs, science full reward so I don't have to do the same science experiments multiple times. Space Y is nice. Later in the game you can get some serious rocket lifters, so you don't need 8 million parts to launch a space station into orbit. Stage recovery gives you some money back if you put parachutes on your boosters and stuff, which I find to be fun. Strategia actually makes the strategies in the game useful and worth thinking about, which in the base game they're pretty much not. Attack fuel balancer allows you to move around stuff in your ship. Toolbar stuff. Janitor's Closet's kind of interesting. It allows you to prune parts that you never use so that KSP doesn't load them next time, so it can save you load time and RAM, which can be important for KSP modded playthroughs. Trajectories shows you where you're going to land on a planet. Transfer window planner also apparently added in 1.12. We'll see if, again, this still works and if the new one that's in the game is better than this mod or not. Tweak scale, classic. I don't use tweak scale for a lot of things. I feel like it's a little bit cheaty to use it on things like engines or certain other things, but I will use it for like wings and fins and structural parts just to make rockets the shape and look that I want them to be. Waterfall, I don't actually know what that does. It's engine effects. Okay. So it's probably going along with cryogenic engines and stuff. Waypoint manager's nice, and bunch of other little mods that just support other mods. So that's the overview. If you guys have any questions, if you're watching this, on the YouTube VOD later or something, just let me know. Let me turn that off. And then I also have a huge spreadsheet that I use to calculate all sorts of stuff. So we'll go back and forth with this. I have all the data, at least the data it used to be current. I hope they haven't changed this data for the different planetary bodies in a spreadsheet here. And then I've got all sorts of formulas on this page that use that data to calculate things for you. Just a quick overview of what I use this for. This section is to calculate just the delta V costs of going to various orbits. This one allows you to see the chord length of multiple satellites, so how far it is between 3 satellites if they're all orbiting. I don't use that much anymore because I've got better stuff over here. ComNet, I used to use Remote Tech, but now ComNet is pretty much the same thing. So I use these 2 sections to do a lot of ComNet calculations. We'll talk more about that in a bit. And then this one, I was trying to figure out more about transfer window planning, and I learned how complicated it is, and so I don't really use any of that anymore. But it can be useful for this V Infinity, and I use Scott Manley's videos, Crackalakin, what you're talking about. Scott Manley's great. And he talks about the hyperbolic excess velocity, I think is what it's called, and that represents if you escape a planetary body, how much velocity do you have going off to infinity? So because that's why it's so much more effective to do your transfer burns close to the orbit of a planet rather than far away, because you add more energy, since at least my understanding of it is essentially your total energy that your craft has is a formula that has to do with the square of your velocity. So if your velocity is faster, then adding more has even more of an impact later on. And I think that's close enough to understanding how it works. And then this right here I use a lot. This tells me exactly how much delta V I need to use. And the new time, or the new semi-major axis, if I want 2 satellites to be in an orbit such that they have 100% coverage of a planet. And that's what all this is for. So with ComNet, you don't need more than 2 satellites because there's an occlusion. So planets allow a little bit of the radio signal to pass through like the very edges of the planet, so they don't completely block everything. And because of that, I put together some calculations to see, you know, because the radio signal can kind of fudge around the edges of the planet a little bit. How do I place two satellites such that they can talk to each other and talk to every point on the planet? So that's what all that's about. And I think that's it. So let's jump into the game. Let me turn this off. And let's go for it. Turn off the preview, move the chat window. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. Start game. I haven't changed a lot of settings, more or less. So those are pretty standard. I changed a couple controls, I think, and maybe some graphics, but we're going to start a new one. How about Krydex space program? Kerbal? There we go. Kerbal space program. This is a career playthrough. Let's see, we got lots of flags added by mods. I'll go with what looks fun. Ooh, is our planet called Krybin? You know, I'm gonna say yes. That sounds good to me. Kerbodyne. I like that one. Unless there are other thoughts. Okay, so difficulty options. Let's see. We do want reverting flights, quick loading. Missing crew does not respawn, so if a Kerbal dies, it's dead. No auto hire. I do want entry purchase required, so even though I unlock a tech, I still have to pay to get to use those parts. That all looks good. Comm network is on. Everything here. I think this is fine. I want this to be a little bit of a simpler playthrough. I don't want it to be crazy long, so I'm going to boost up the science and funding rewards just a little bit. We'll go to 120%. And starting funds should be okay. Advanced, we do want Kerbal experience. I like Kerbals to level up immediately, so like when they plant a flag on a planet, they'll get their level then rather than once they return home alive. Part pressure limits, G-force limits, and Kerbal G-force limits are all on. Resource transfer obeys crossfeed. I don't know if that works with TAC fuel balancer or not, but I always turn that on. Always allow action groups. That's important to me. It's annoying to deal with crappy action groups. That just feels like something that even a low technology Kerbal spacecraft should have. Part upgrades is good. Require signal for control is very important. I don't like probes to just be able to fly on the far side of a moon without a satellite connection. And then here you can see you can do a range modifier, DSN modifier. I believe JNSQ automatically sets all this. Oh crap. No, I can't get that back to 1. There we go. Like I think this, what are they called? Antennas in JNSQ have a farther range, but if we need to modify that later, we can. Well, that's good. I don't want extra ground stations, just the Kerbal Space Center. And then these settings, I think I mostly leave alone. Better time warp, better load save game. Click through blocker. Oh, contract configurator. So I think that's all fine because the ones that are taken off here are the ones that there's a better version of. Who knows if I'm actually, because the base game has been changed since some of these have existed, so maybe these are actually better now. Who knows? Janitor's fine. Crash. Procedural fairings. Science parameter modifier. Stage recovery. That's all fine. Attack fuel balancer, I think that's all fine. Toolbar control. Yeah, I think that's all the things that I want. Accept and start. Sweet. Oh, this is going to be great. We are going to launch some rockets. Yes, we are. All right. So click through blocker. I think I want focus follows mouse. I've never really compared them a bunch. Toolbar, controller, intro. Hopefully I already know how to do all this. Yeah, I think that's fine. Nice to meet you. I'm Gene Kerman, flight director and your guide. This is your Space Center. Feel free to have a look around, right-click over the Space Center to learn more about them. Thanks, I've got it. And then I need to move this over here somewhere. Okay, so for those of you that have never seen Kerbal Space Program before, it is a space simulation game. You launch rockets, you put stuff into orbit, you get money, you get science, you unlock new parts with science, you build cooler stuff that can go farther into the solar system, and it's very open-ended, but there are also missions to do that kind of drive it forward. So I think the first thing I'll do is drop into the astronaut complex. Let's meet our crew. It's the standard crew. Jebediah Kerman's the pilot. We've got Bill as the engineer, Bob as the scientist, and then we've got a spare pilot as well, Valentina. Scientists become important, especially once they level up a little bit, because they can increase your science returns, and then they can also reset experiments that otherwise you could only use once. And then you can hire new Kerbals, or Kribals, I guess I should say. And then we can head into mission control and see what sorts of missions are available. Looks like a few. Rover missions, can't do any of that. Oh, we could. That would just be a rover on Kerbal. So, I don't know if I have wheels yet though. Leave the launch pad. I should probably take that one. Leave the surface of Kerbal. I can definitely do that. And then we'll do unmanned missions, get a probe into orbit, and then orbit a probe and return it home. That'll probably take a few launches, so I'll wait on that one. My first launch is definitely not going to go into orbit. And then there's this one, which gives you a bunch of money to go do science around the Kerbal Space Center. I'll wait on that one too. So I guess right now we're just doing the Launchpad one, and we'll get our 37,000 Kerbal bucks. What are they called? Kerbucks, maybe? I don't actually know. Research and development. I want to take a glance in here, see what we've got. Just some basic solid boosters, and yeah, we'll want to get these liquid engines pretty soon, along with some, I guess that's just adapters. Oh, there's a decoupler there. That'll be nice. Parachutes in this one, landing legs. So yeah, we'll just have to kind of work our way up the tech tree. So let's just jump in and see what we get. And it's entirely possible that some of my mods don't work together and things crash. It's part of why I put Chillin in the title, is because we might be chillin' waiting for the game to load sometimes. Alright, so let's see. We've got all sorts of buttons down here that I don't use all the time, but Kerbal Engineer Redux is blacked out. Oh, that's because this is here. Okay, so one thing I do like to do is turn on, what is it? Partless. I don't want to have to put an extra part on my ship for this to work, because this is all just information. I like to have it. Other than that, simulate using vector thrust values we want on, and that should do it. So this will give us information as we're building our ship, rocket thing, and then it'll also give us a ton of information as we're flying, and we're gonna have to configure a million things. We start with these procedural tanks, but if I remember correctly, let's see. Well, there's a lot of things going on. First of all, smart tank, I'll turn off for now. It does automatically scale to fit. But then let's see. Oh, I don't know what KSP recall is. I should look into that. I don't actually even know how I got that. I don't remember downloading that, but I have it, and it enables a button in here, so I should probably check out what that means. But anyway, we can change the size of this if we turn off match the attached engine and auto fit. Or no, we want match fuel. We don't want auto fit on. So then I can change the size of it, but it has a maximum size right now. And as we go higher in the tech tree, we'll be able to get bigger fuel tanks. Which I might change that just because I like to reduce the part count on my ships as much as possible. It keeps the game running faster. This game is laggy as heck. So I'd rather just have one fuel tank than 8 stacked on top of each other. Anyway, we'll start out with the little tiny solid rocket booster. And do I need to change the thrust? So I can set the thrust limiter to change how quickly it burns its fuel. And we can see up here the thrust to weight ratio is 3 to start out. It's 3 currently, but then by the time it's done burning, it'll be at 10. So that's a little bit high. I might end up exploding from heat. So I'm going to reduce that a little bit. Start at around 2. And these other numbers are all important. We'll talk more about them as we go. Cost is obvious, parts is obvious, mass obvious. ISP or ISP, I forget what that stands for, but it references essentially how much thrust you get per kilogram of fuel usage. So it kind of represents how effective the engine is. That's a really important number for long space missions. Having a number like 400 is going to be significantly easier to get far in the solar system than a number like 300. Torque is telling you how much rotation it's going to apply when it thrusts. So if I were to like put another one to make it lopsided, you can see that there's torque, and that will spin the rocket as it thrusts, and you don't want that. Delta V is the overall amount of thrust it can apply to the ship. So if this was sitting in space motionless and then I launched the rocket, we'd end up going 25-20 meters per second at the end of it. And that's how long it takes to burn. So I said we talked about it later, but I guess we talked about it now. Coupling, you can make decouplers to, have a little boost, and then you drop all that off and then have another boost. I don't generally use the procedural decouplers though. Couple nose cones, we don't really need that since this thing is already shaped aerodynamically. And I will need some fins so that it flies straight. And there's a little trick with these guys that I'll show you in a minute. I might tweak these down to be a tiny bit smaller because that's kind of big, and you can see it reduces our delta V down to 2166, and if I make these a little smaller, we'll get more power out of our launch. And in general, you want fins to be as far down as you can because it will affect your center of what's it called? Center of pressure, I think. Essentially, where is the twisting force going to be applied? Well, the center of mass is the yellow one, and that's what it'll rotate around. But the fins, when they're pushed to the side, you want the center of that pressure, or center of thrust, or whatever it is, to be applied farther away from the center of mass, and that gives you more torque, even for the same amount of like air flowing past the fins. So you can even move these down, like to the very bottom to give yourself the most possible stabilization from the same parts. So you always want to put fins down as far as you can. And then electrical, we already have 10 electric charge, just kind of built into the little probe core here. And I think that should be enough for our first launch. I could add a battery if I needed to. And then we will need a... Well, actually, will I? Yeah, I will. We'll need an antenna. So I don't need 4 of them, though, so... what am I doing? Control Z is undo. I just did the wrong thing. I'm forgetting all my hotkeys. X is more, so Shift X is less. There we go. So we'll just put that on the side. Thankfully, there are parts that don't apply to the center of mass. So you can see that even though I'm putting one Ah, the center of lift. Thank you. I don't know why I was forgetting that. Yes, like center of thrust? No, that's not right. Center of thrust is for your engines. That's this one. Yeah, center of lift is how things get pushed when air flows past it. Anyway, you can put these in some of the antennas on the side without imbalancing it. And I believe they're not massless, so the mast does get added on. They used to be massless, but they're not anymore. But they are physics-less, meaning that this is, like, I could put this out here, and that looks like it would create drag, strangely, and my rocket would fly sideways, but it won't. So they can burn up if they get too hot, but they're not going to make my little rocket fly weird. And then there's some science experiments. We'll get back to that in a second. I just want to look through personal parachutes. We don't even have Kerbals yet. Kerbals. And that's it. That's just a procedural battery that you can make whatever size you want. And we've got the antenna, which let's kind of look through what it can do. So it has an antenna rating of 1. I assume that's 1 million. What does 1M mean? Yeah, I think that's just a million. I don't know why it's not MM, though. It should be capital M, lowercase m, like that says right there. But essentially what that means is it can go at most 1,000 kilometers away. Is that right? Or is that saying 1 meter? No, that's 1 million meters. I don't understand why that M's not there. Anyway, so this is telling you at my current Kerbal Space Center upgrades, I can go 44.7 million meters away. That feels way too far for this. Huh. Something feels off. That should not be 44 million meters. Normally it's like a few hundred kilometers. Maybe 1 million meters. Because, I mean, orbit's at 100 kilometers. And if I'm remembering correctly, these were not supposed to be able to get me into orbit. Or at least not far past orbit. So this feels like it's bigger than it's supposed to be. We'll keep an eye on the antennas as we go. I guess I can click on this. It'll tell me. One antenna, stay Putnik. Oh, this has its own antenna in it. Doesn't it? Or does it? So CurbNet access is something else. Data transmitter cannot transmit science. That's not good. I don't actually totally understand that. But oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, max range is 1 million meters. And max distance at 100% would be 44 million meters to the home base. You can pick a target and see if 2 ships can talk to each other. So this is a really helpful little tool as you're building a craft. I also have some Excel spreadsheets that are doing similar things, but it's easier to see when you're building it. Okay, well, I think we're ready to launch. I'm going to do a couple things before we do, which is add a science experiment in. This mystery goo inline containment might be too much science. It might take too much electricity to transmit. I'm actually gonna wait on that one. It's not telling me how many science packets it would send, because that's what mostly determines the electricity cost. And then this one, I can log temperature. So I'll just put that on this side. Again, it is physics-less, so that doesn't introduce any torque no matter where I put it, which is nice. So we can log temperature. And I think that's it. So what shall we call our first little craft? The Virgin Voyage of the Kerbal Space Center. Maybe we'll call it the... Should I name things after animals or insects or just kind of made up names. I don't know anything about like real space history, so it's not like I can just call them like Apollo this or Apollo that. It's not letting me actually change that. I don't know what's happening. I think click-through blocker is doing something weird. Oh, I just have to start typing. Okay, this will be the cry. I mean, this is the very beginning of the space program, so we'll just name it after the space program itself. This is the Kerbal 1. And there's something you can do with the fins, which is called spin stabilization. So I'll show you both versions. We'll start with the good one, but if I slightly rotate these, which that's actually probably too much, so I'll open up editor extensions, fine adjust, and then that will let me change rotation amount to smaller. No, that's actually not working. Oh, it's this. Is it that one? Yeah, that lets me do smaller angle rotations. And we want part position info. Wow, that's a lot of info. I basically just want to see the rotation of it and make it very small. So like that number right there is about a degree. Maybe that's too small. We'll go to like 3 degrees, 2.5 degrees. Anyway, how do I get rid of this? Close. I still feel like there were other ways to do that. Angle snap, fine adjust. Can you make that a decimal? No. Okay, whatever. Anyway, what that'll do is it'll spin the rocket as it flies, which if you have ever tried to hold like a gyroscope type thingy, then you've discovered that it's harder to rotate something if there's a part of it that's spinning. And I'm not amazing at physics, but I'm pretty sure that has to do with the centripetal force. Action groups, I don't need anything. Why am I clicking that? Clicking the wrong thing. Anyway, if it spins, it won't fly off to the side. So I think that's all we want. So we will launch our first vessel. All right. A lot of time spent loading in this game. Okay, so the flight engineer, we're gonna have to play with those settings a lot. But you can see we start here on the launch pad. Looks like sunset. And some readout information's down here at the left. The throttle doesn't matter because this is a solid rocket booster. So there's no control that I have. Once it's ignited, it just goes. If you've ever launched a little model rocket, then you probably had a solid rocket booster. It was a lot smaller than this one, but it just goes until it's done going. And I guess I'll start this toolbar just right here to the side. Oh, how did that move on me? Didn't I just say I wanted you here? Lock position, there we go. It's like when I click the lock position and size button. There we go. Okay, so we do want orbital information. That's very important. So that'll give us stuff like apoapsis, periapsis, eccentricity, inclination, our orbital period. Those are all really handy. I like to have information on the vessel. And I like to take that. And I actually want this one to go away. So let's see, we need to find out the button for this. HUD 1. Yeah, turn that off. And we put this up here. And we'll change around the things we display. But actually, I think I put something else there. I've set this up so many times, but I always forget how I do it. And we want vessel to be HUD, so that it's just smaller. And then this gives us a lot of helpful information, like the mass, current, gravity, impact on our craft, our delta V, our thrust to weight ratio, our acceleration, heading, pitch, and roll. I don't really care about a lot of those things. We'll continue to modify this as we go. Let's just mess with the vessel one a little bit right now. I don't care about heading, pitch, and roll because I'm not flying a plane. So pitch I might care about a little bit, just because, you know, I want to know how much I'm pitched over, but I can just see the nav ball for that. So the other things I care about: name, mass, gravity, delta V, staged and total, thrust to weight ratio, acceleration. The RCS stuff, a lot of my crafts don't have RCS, but it is kind of nice to have. That's a new one that didn't used to exist. Suicide burn I have in a different one. Thrust torque could be helpful. Yeah, let's throw that one in there, because that'll tell me if my thrust is going to make my craft turn, and if so, how much. And how is delta V current? Isn't that what I already have here? Huh. Alright, well, I think that's good. Oh, and thrust. I do want thrust. There we go. Specific impulse, I probably don't need. That's kind of just a waste of space, but we'll move the thrust indicator up here to be right in front of thrust to weight ratio. And then thrust torque will move up there as well. It looks like you can change the color of the text too, which is kind of cool. All right, so I think we're ready to launch. So, oh, I've been burning electric charge this whole time. That's kind of funny. We will restart our mission because we've wasted a bunch of electric charge sitting here and changing settings. So let me just save the game real quick. I don't want it to be named quick save though. Why is it? It's weird. Anyway, we'll revert to launch. Save ourselves those 5 minutes of electric charge. And then we'll launch this puppy and see how high it goes. And then just for fun, we'll test out how different it is if I don't have the twisted fins. Oh, we also need to do science. So I have some science mods. Again, like, everything's changed so much in this game over time. I don't know what works how anymore. This one is called Science Alert. And there's also X Science. And then there was X Science Here and Now. And this one is more for tracking if you've collected it all, I think. Yeah, like this is telling me what's available right now. And that's going to be a telemetry report while on Kerbin's launch pad and a temperature scan while on Kerbin's launch pad. So that's more just for telling you what you need to do. And then there's this one, Science Alert, which can stop the time warp and tell you, oh, hey, you have some science you need to do. And so we'll just have that kind of on by default, and it's a nice little interface where you can be like, okay, I want to do the temperature scan and transmit that. Oh, not enough electric charge. Okay, so maybe we do need a battery. So let's go back and put a battery on this thing. Hopefully that'll be enough to transmit that science, and then once we launch, we'll be able to take some new science experiments from the air. So I'll put it right on top, just for fun. Hopefully it doesn't burn up. Horribly not aerodynamic, but I think those batteries are also one of those parts that doesn't affect the aerodynamic profile. You know, the Kerbals don't really know how to build rockets yet, so they don't yet know that putting a battery on the very front of a rocket is a bad idea. They haven't learned that lesson. Okay, so let's try this again. Science Alert. How did that move? Wasn't that over to the side? Okay, so we'll deploy the temperature scan, transmit it. There we go. So that used about 30 of our electric charge, and a telemetry report. Transmit that. All right. And so we're ready to launch. All systems a go. And we have liftoff. And you see it's starting to spin, which is good. That means it won't tip over. And I can do another telemetry report and scan. And that's about all we're going to get from this launch, because our battery's almost out. We are spinning at a high rate of speed. Our acceleration's almost up to 3. Thrust-weight ratio. 5 kilometers altitude above sea level. We're almost going 300 meters a second. And not accelerating a ton more. We gotta wait for the atmosphere to get a bit thinner. And that's another readout that I need to have somewhere, is the... I forget where it is, but it'll tell me essentially the thickness of the air pressure. Okay, so we've burned out the engines. Now we're just gonna kind of go on a nice little journey up, slow down, fall down, and explode. And that will be Kerbal 1. The first mission. We made it to almost 20 kilometers above sea level. Not bad for a tiny little 500 kilogram rocket. Okay, so I'll speed up time a little bit so we can be done a bit sooner. So weirdly enough, we're falling down now, but this is actually bottom heavy enough that the fins aren't making it go battery down. Maybe it's getting there. But the little Stay Putnik thing is not very heavy. And so because this is empty now, the whole thing's just kind of unstable. So it's doing all sorts of weird things. But it does look like it finally decided to go nose down. And now that it's spinning, it'll just stay nose down until it hits the ground, which will speed up the time warp a little bit. You can see the wonderful little glitchy time warp where the fins are not even connected to the rocket, which should worry you, but the whole thing's going to explode anyway, so I don't really care. And then my game tends to just freeze when things hit the ground rather than have a brilliant explosion. We'll see what happens. Yep, there's a nice little freeze, and then poof. And somehow that survived. That seems unreasonable to me, but we will not revert. We'll just go to the Space Center. says the outcome was catastrophic failure, but when your goal was catastrophic failure, then was it a failure in the first place? Because we got our science, and we'll see what we unlocked. I think we finished our contract, so we got a bunch of money from that. So here we go. We got a bunch of milestones. First experiment, first vessel, speed records, 2 of them. Broken some altitude records. And a land distance record. And we've returned to the surface. That's not quite true. But we got money and a little bit of reputation for all that. Reputation is a prerequisite for some things. And then we finished our contract, got 37.5 grand, 3 science, and 6 rep. So then we can jump into mission control and see if there's any new missions. Reach the upper atmosphere is the next one. And we definitely can do that. Get above 18,000 meters. We already did that. We could just do the same launch again. And then there's a whole part testing category that like wants you to bring parts to a certain like altitude or planet and test them. So that's always a good way if we're short on money to make some money. Generally not the most fun contracts though. There are surveys where you're supposed to go to a certain area and measure like a temperature. Those can be difficult. Sometimes you need planes for that. It's hard to make rockets work for that. And then I believe these contracts are from the probes before core thing. So the first one of those is going to be an orbit. So we're still a ways away from that. So, okay, we'll just settle for the upper atmosphere contract. Let's jump into R&D and see what we can research. We can get some liquid fuel engines and some bigger boosters. And we can get the tiny decoupler and antenna. So we'll do both of those. And really one of the bigger things that I want next is going to be a different probe core, because that Stay Putnik thing is really annoying. So this one, the Probodyne Octo, will allow me to put the probe core kind of in the middle or put things on top, like a parachute. So we'll need 15 science for that. All right, well, let's see what we can do with the new parts. And just for sake of completeness, I'll show you what happens without the spinning. Because spin stabilization is great, but what happens if you don't have spin stabilization? Some of it also depends on just how naturally aerodynamic the craft is. That looks off-center for sure. What is going on? There we go. Okay, so we just imagine we did the same thing without the spin stabilization, and we'll call this the Kerbal 1. I need like a letter for a bad ship. This is the Kerbal 1. D for not defunct. There's another word like that. Deprecated. This is the deprecated version. It's no good. I don't like it. But this is for science. Not literally science. I won't get more science points from doing this, but you know, just the normal science where I'm testing how different it would be without spin stabilization. All right, and we launch. And you can see we're tilting a tiny bit. This is fairly aerodynamic in the first place, so I don't know if it's actually going to tilt that much. So, I mean, you can see it's tilting a little bit off-center, but heck, my spin-stabilized one tilted a little bit too. So, I mean, we're like 5 degrees off now. So, There you go. There's your science. Now we're about 10 degrees off of straight up. So it didn't make a huge difference for this particular craft, but it could make a large difference depending on the craft. All right, so our next goal is pretty much the same thing, but let's just kind of glance through our new parts. We now have an actual fuel tank, and we have actual liquid fuel engines. So let's try out some of those and see what happens. Let's just make a new craft. Don't save. Still got to start with the same thing. If I'm remembering correctly, these are too big. Yeah, these are way too big. So I might have a structural connector. Where's that thing? Structural. Yeah, I think there's an adapter here I can use so that fits, and then I can put, let's see, what engine would be appropriate? The swivel is 1.5 tons. Probably more than I need. The Valiant has a 240 ASL ISP, and this has a 150. Okay, so this engine is not made to work in the atmosphere. You can see that the atmospheric ASL stands for at sea level, and that's a very bad ISP, 150, and so that's not going to give me a lot of thrust. It works, but you're going to want to use this one either in the upper atmosphere or in orbit, because 330 in a vacuum is very good. So this one, the Valiant, is the one that's made for sea level, 240. So we'll unlock that and pop that on there, and then you can see that I have a little stubby rocket, but a very high TWR and a decent amount of delta V. So what I'll do is see if I can actually use the procedural tanks or not. Yeah, I don't know why. If I make it shorter, can I make it wider? Okay, yeah, 1.25 meters. So those hold a little bit more. They're still locked to certain maximum volume right now. I think, yeah. But I can change the texture, make it look a little cooler. So let's kind of look through our textures here. We got all sorts of options. Wow, that's ugly. Huh. Like a purple of doom. Thermal blanket. Charcoal. New stage. Redstone. I like this one for big tanks. I feel like that one looks cool. There's a lot of white and black designs, that's for sure. And I like these ones for little satellite things. But I think I'll stick with just like one of these white and black ones. And we'll do 2 of those. It looks like a decent amount of delta V, 2290. I mean, I still have plenty of thrust, so... And the cost for a fuel tank's only 260, so it's not like I'm spending a ton more money to add another one, and then we get a lot more delta V. So we can go higher up into the atmosphere. And structural stuff, robotic stuff. I could have a decoupler. Didn't I unlock a decoupler, or is that the next tier? It's probably the next tier. Sure didn't unlock a lot. There's a new antenna, which has a combinability exponent, which means you can put multiples and they'll add together. This stuff is actually pretty important. The packet size, bandwidth, and consumption, that tells you it can send 2, they're called MITs, which is like megabits or whatever, Kerbal bits. And you can send 2 of them at 8 electric charge. whereas this one can send 2 at 14 electric charge. So this is very power inefficient, and it sends 2.5 per second, whereas this would send about the same. But this is more power efficient to send your science. The problem is the mass is a lot higher at 95 kilograms, and it's a lot shorter, only 160 kilometers. So there's really no reason for me to use that when I have this, which, again, that's kind of the issue sometimes with these mod packs, is like some parts are basically pointless. I'll put that there. And what else can I chuck on this thing? We'll deal with fins in a minute. We want some batteries. I'll put 2 batteries on it, and we'll sink those slightly in. And I just got a text message. Give me 1 second. Okay. So that's the new stuff there. I probably should try out... Those are just flight unit things, which I don't use since I do the parts list. I should probably try out one of these mystery goo doohickeys. So let me put that right there. Doesn't weigh that much, 100 kilograms. And that should be able to get me some science. And it looks like that's about all I can do. And I'll keep the thermometer on here just because I will need that in the upper atmosphere. So this one, when it says transmission 30%, that means I can get at most 30% of the science back if I transmit it digitally. These are made to collect physically what's left, and so I'm not going to get as much science. Oh, and that's going to give me torque. I guess I should have 2 of these so that they'll balance out. But those will be able to transmit a little bit of science, hopefully. But eventually, once I have a parachute, I'll be able to return the science and get a lot more. Okay, so this is our second attempt. Hopefully get a little bit higher in the atmosphere. Oh, we need fins. Now, the real question with this engine is, does it have vectoring? And it does. So a gimbal allows it to thrust at slightly different angles. We can find out in the actual engine details. It has a vectoring range of 5 degrees, which is actually quite a lot. So I might not even need fins to fly this rocket. It depends on how top heavy it is, which I can kind of find out here. If there's a lot of things that create drag near the top, then it'll tilt over really fast and no amount of gimbal will save you. Usually just putting a few fins near the bottom is enough to keep it aerodynamically stable so that the gimbal can correct any small, tilting that you have. So we'll go with that. We'll keep the fins on it. And similarly, but to before, we'll put them down a little bit further to help out. And that's all I can do. So hopefully this thing won't fall over on the launch pad. I don't have the things the launch clamps that can hold it yet. This will be the Kerbal 2. Why did that just move? There's a serious deficiency in this game when it comes to like typing in the title. It's like really weird. I don't understand what's going on. So why did those move? Anyway, okay, so the Kerbal 2. Like, will it even let me enter a description? I guess it will. Okay, whatever. We are good to go. Save that, and TWR of 3 is quite nice. In bigger rockets, sometimes you settle for even just like 2 or even 1.5 if you're really desperate. But the lower your thrust weight ratio is, the more you're basically just losing fuel to gravity, because a TWR of 1 means that you will basically be weightless. So you won't get anywhere. So a TWR of 1.5, well, 1 out of that 1.5 is spending fuel just to fight gravity, and then you're only accelerating at a gravity of 0.5, which means you're not going to be accelerating very fast. Okay, so we're ready to go. Let's check out our science. This toolbar, I don't know why it's there, but let's move it over here or something. And we'll open up. Can I move these? I don't know. Science alert. Lock that window. Okay, so mystery goo is worth 11.5. I can only transmit 42% of the science value. The reason it's 42% is because my connection is so good, I get a 40% bonus to science. And 30% times 1.4 gives you 42%. So I'd get 5 science for transmitting that. The data size is 12 MITs. We already learned that we use 7 electric charge per MIT, so that's going to cost me 80 of my power to transmit, which is fine. I need the science. And there we go. And I don't know why it's not telling me mystery goo is available. Wait. Oh, I'm dumb. This mystery goo and this mystery goo are the same experiment. For some reason, I thought this was a Science Junior. We'll get that later, which is another physical experiment where they want you to return the materials. I didn't notice those are the exact same experiment. Well, that's good, because we'll have one for the lower atmosphere, one for the upper atmosphere. We're not going to have enough electric charge for both, though. So let's launch. Okay, so SAS allows you to stabilize, what? I don't know why all these options are here. I'm actually very confused. I don't remember this even having stability assist, so I don't know why it's allowing me to be able to do these maneuvers. But anyway, SAS is, oh gosh, what does that even stand for? Something, stability assist, something assist stability. Stability assist system? I don't know. Something like that. It'll just keep the plane or rocket flying straight. And then Z and X and shift and control allow me to set throttle. We'll start with full throttle and we'll just go for it. We'll take our mystery goo observation. The goo jiggles and wobbles as the craft flies. We'll transmit that back. It's just giving me a warning that I won't be able to run the experiment again. And we're actually getting electric charge back, which is really nice, because this engine generates electricity while it runs. So once we get to the upper atmosphere, we should have enough electric charge again to be able to run the experiment. And I'm going to reduce my thrust just a little bit so that we're not pushing against drag as much. I don't have the readouts on drag right now, but eventually you're actually better off decelerating because the air is pushing back so hard on you. We probably didn't actually reach that point though, so I should probably keep it wide open throttle. And there we go. 20,000 it looks like is the upper atmosphere, so we made it. And we can transmit a temperature scan and telemetry report from the upper atmosphere, and another mystery goo, the third one. And reserve power is a really cool thing that I think it's the amp year mod adds in. What you can actually do is transfer reserve power to main power. So if you have a probe that's dead in space, you can like revitalize it for a second because maybe the solar panels aren't lined up properly and that's why it's dead. And that's in the base game. There's really no way to fix that, which is really annoying. So reserve power is just a nice way to have like a backup and a main power system separated out so you never really lose control of your probes completely. All right, and then this thing is going to drift all the way up to 63 kilometers, according to our apoapsis height. And then we will return back to Kerbal, where we will explode. So we completed our contract and a speed record, altitude record. So I'm going to speed time up a little bit. We'll watch this thing blow up. We could just abandon it, and it would probably give us a notification later that it exploded. Or no, sorry, it wouldn't let us leave the craft unless it just destroyed it automatically because it's in the atmosphere. All right, so as we get lower, you can see the atmospheric pressure is going up, and our craft is so it's bottom heavy, and the top clearly has more aerodynamic forces acting on it. More of the weight is in the engine. So even though there are fins down here, since the center of mass is about down here, the aerodynamic forces acting on this part of the rocket are lining it up a lot more. There's a lot more torque up here than right here, and the center of mass is probably like right there. So here we go, about to blow up, and kaboom. And clearly this game has no idea how to actually do explosions, because that whole thing should have died. Very much died. We'll return to the Space Center. And we should be able to get another research, hopefully. Okay. So first thing I want to do is find the debris, and we'll recover those debris so that they don't exist anymore. And we get like a couple funds back, but that's it. There we go. Okay. Those start to clog up your game over time if you don't deal with them. All right, so research and development, we can get one of these next researches. So we got solar panels, a new extendable antenna that has a 4 million distance. A bit faster on the transmission, a bit more expensive on the electric charge. Landing struts, a parachute, a heat shield for atmospheric re-entry. I guess 2 different kinds of landing legs. A better probe core. It actually has a tiny reaction wheel in it, which allows you to turn in space. There are some mods that change how reaction wheels work. I might end up getting one. Sorry, another text message. So reaction wheels are sort of non-realistic. They're partially non-realistic in the sense that they do exist, but they have a limited amount of usage, so they can only be used for so much rotation before they stop working. And so there was a mod that allowed reaction wheels to kind of like charge up, but then if you held them constantly, they don't do much. I don't know how I'll end up playing it, because it's really cool to not use reaction wheels a lot, but they're also really nice to be able to just do small turns for small probes, because having to add the little monopropellant twisting and everything onto like tiny probes, that can get pretty annoying. So we'll see what I end up doing with that. Either way, I'm actually still a little confused. I'm going to look on the Stay Putnik probe. Yeah, why did the stability assist have all of those things unlocked? Because this is telling me the only thing it can do is stability assist. it can't actually like steer towards prograde or normal. So when I was flying that rocket, I don't know where that was coming from. It might be a Kerbal engineer glitch or something. The new update. I don't know what's going on. The rocket one would give me new solid rocket boosters, a decoupler. This did add a decoupler. Why didn't that show up? What the heck? Oh, wait a second. Do I have that setting turned off? I don't know why that wasn't showing up, but I think I might know why. Because those were showing up. That's weird. So I think I will do survivability, though, just because I can do parachutes. So we'll research that one. There might be a setting that hides unpurchased parts somewhere. That used to be a thing. But then why was I seeing the engines? These are the questions. All right. So, yeah, they're there. So why wasn't the decoupler showing up? We have ourselves a question. Let's try different sorting methods. Decoupler. Why is that not showing up? It's gotta be in one of these, right? Heat shield, radiator panel, procedural heat shield. No, it's not showing up. Okay, well that is a question mark. Because the other new items are showing up. But why that one decoupler is not here? Huh. Let's go back to the research and development real quick. So, I wonder if there's a setting somewhere. I don't think it would be any of those. Toolbar enabled. Okay. Let's look in janitor's toolbar. Okay, well that didn't seem to bring anything up other than the help. So why is that part, which is supposed to have been unlocked, not showing up? Especially when these other three parts did show up. TD12 coupler. I feel like this is even the stock part. I wonder if it's the restock plus that's messing this up. Because that fuel tank showed up. Are any of these not showing up? I think all of these have showed up as well. So I am real confused. I just purchased it. Let's see if that makes it show up. Kerbal Space Program has a lot of stuff like this. If you start to mod it, especially where you're like, what is happening? A lot of modding, debugging your mods kind of gameplay for sure. Which I don't mind. It would be nice if everything worked together happily, but it doesn't sometimes. Like, that still just isn't there in the coupling menu, and I have no idea why. And if I search decoupler, it just doesn't exist. So for some reason, that part in particular is not here, and I don't know why, and I actually want to use it, which is making things more difficult. But we do have our new probe core, and if I need decoupling, I can just use these procedural stack decouplers and fit it to the attached part. You can change the impulse of how powerful it is. Looks like I actually don't have a ton of options. 5 kilonewtons is the maximum. But I don't want to... Oh, 250 kilonewtons. What? That says 5 kilonewtons. But when I middle click, it says 250 kilonewtons. Huh. Oh, I guess that's just the default thing it says. Why is that other one not showing up? Let's, real quick, just test a... We'll open up a new save that is not career, but it's just free play, and we'll see if that part shows up. So let's save this real quick. Kerbal 1. And then quit to the main menu. We'll start a new save, and then we'll open up the VAB, the Vehicular Assembly Building. I assume that's what that stands for. And we'll see if sandbox test 2. We'll see if anything's weird there. Watch the game crash when I open the VAB. Focus follows click, I think is what I want. I just can't understand why that part is being hidden when other ones aren't. I'm wondering if it has to do with procedural parts or something. I mean, there's like a million parts here. And in coupling... Okay, we are missing all of the decouplers here. Literally every single... There's docking ports. And there's radial decouplers. But all of the regular decouplers are not here. And payload only has fairings, not decouplers. So there must be a setting. I'll have to look in procedural decouplers. It's like somehow they're getting disabled by something. I don't think it would be the robotics stuff, I hope. So I'll have to look into that. It's not in structural, right? Couplers, adapters, girders. Yeah, I don't see any decouplers. So for some reason, all of the decouplers are getting removed. Yeah, they're just not here. Procedural decoupler is all I get. I mean, we can make them as big as we want, but... Yeah, okay, well, we'll move on. I'll try to figure that out later. Let's see. Quit to main menu. Resume. Saved. Kerbal space program. got a lot of old ones. I will be right back. Seems like a good time for a break. Break time. Okay, I'm back. So let's warp to the sunrise. Tired of the dark. Much better. Alright, so we don't really understand why the decouplers aren't showing up, but we know they're not. So let's pop back into mission control and see what we got. Enter into space. We need a probe, crew capacity none, and above 70,000 meters. Now hold on, isn't... Crap. Are we not in JNSQ at all? Ha, hold on. I literally fired it up and stuff was here, so hold on a second. What is going on? So we zoom out and yeah, okay, the new planets are here. This is JNSQ. And if we look at the let's see. Space high. Yeah, atmosphere depth is 85 kilometers. Okay. So this is JNSQ. I'm not making that up. For some reason those contracts just don't update based on JNSQ stuff. Which means it's giving the old atmosphere height, which is 70 kilometers, but now it's 85 kilometers. It's weird that these don't update at all. Huh. Unmanned missions, that's still just an orbit first. Surveys, rover missions, part testing. For mystery goo. See, these are awesome, but they just don't pay that much. They don't give you science, and it's really difficult to get to the Western Sea, the highlands, and the ice caps, especially when you don't even know where those are. So some of these experiments are just like, wow, that is really difficult. Enter into space, though. We can do that. So we will do that next. We should be able to get something cool going here. We'll do our first staging. Okay, so we want our probe core. I also could return some experiments back down to Kerbal, Krybin, whatever we're calling it. So you know, we could do something like this. Again, but this time with a parachute on top. So let's see, parachutes. So we can put a parachute on top, and then what you can do, I'll show you in a second. I'll add a couple more of these. And let's see, texture should be different. How about Saturn? Or even German? We'll do that one. Okay, so then we got that, and then what you do is you take the parachute, you click on actions, you click on the parachute, and then that opens up the real shoot menu, which I can't move for some reason. And now it's like literally clicking on buttons behind it. That click-through blocker does not seem to be working. I don't know what's going on. Why can I not drag that menu? Stage recovery, that's not what I want. Is there not a real shoots button? Guess not, I don't see anything. So yeah, I think that is the way you're supposed to get there, but then the click-through blocker isn't blocking. So, weird. We do want must go down to deploy. Deployment time, like 2 seconds. Spare shoots, AutoCAD speed. Mostly you don't have to worry about that. You can just set your wanted touchdown speed to be like 5. And then the altitude pre-deployment to be more like, I don't know, 10,000. And you want to use current craft mass using dry mass, which means it'll use the mass of the craft after you burned all your fuel. Hit apply settings, it'll say succeeded if that parachute can handle it. And then you're good to go. I still don't know why we can't move this window. Click-through blocker doesn't seem to be working. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. Regardless, that's all you need to do. So then that will work. We'll add a little bit more weight to it, but hopefully not too much. And we'll get some aerodynamics on here. And yeah, I guess we should have a coupler, or what do they call it? An adapter. Make it a little bit more aerodynamic that way. And then we need our communotron. And we need some batteries. Now this is where you can use like procedural batteries. I don't know if they can get big enough yet though. Yeah, they have a maximum diameter right now, which is going to restrict me. Because you could just make a little skinny one that's the width of this whole thing. So for now, we'll just keep using these batteries. I'm not going to really transmit a ton, so I'll just put those there. And then science, we won't need a thermometer because we're just collecting things and then landing. And I should be able to rotate these and do 3 of them. And I'll land with all 3 intact. I guess the question is, do I need landing gear? Will it even reach the ground? Not really. Could build some girders, but those are so heavy, you're not really supposed to use that for stuff that flies. I could put these procedural structural elements. These are pretty light, I think. So we'll do shape. What do we want? Polygon? Yeah, let's do that. And corners. Oop. I just minimize my game. We'll do little squares with a small diameter. And then we'll attach the landing... Whoa, I did not mean to do that. Attach the landing struts to that. Offset that down a little bit. And that should allow our craft to land. Center mass is pretty high up for sure. So I hope the parachute does a good job. We should probably recalculate now with our parachute. And let's have a touchdown speed of 4 if we can. Yeah, that works. So deployment speed of 6 seconds. Let's reduce that down to 4. Okay, so as long as the ground is flat enough, this should be okay. And then we'll put those to be deploy shielded. I don't know what that means. Huh. But yeah, this should work. So this is still pretty similar, but we'll go to the Kerbal 5, jump to the next series, simply because it has landing gear and a parachute. So this one is the first mission intended to be returned safely to Kerbal. Hopefully it works. Parachute, landing gear, science, batteries. Should work. We'll try it out. Ah, this is good stuff. Just wait until we get to orbit. That's when the game really starts to get magical. But I like the early game. I feel like that's true with most of these games where there's progression. I really highly value the progression of the early game. No, good thing it can balance on its engine. That's what we're doing with it. Okay, so I think I can just full throttle ahead and go for it. SAS is still giving me all options for some reason, which it shouldn't be. I'll just have to not cheat, basically, and not use ones that I'm not supposed to have. Although I forget which ones this one has, but I'll just keep normal stability assist on. I just want to go up as high as I can anyway. So here we go. Launch up. And we got a nice TWR of 2.2. Let me get the atmospheric pressure going on the Kerbal Engineer 1. So on vessel, we want surface. Let's see. I think it's, yeah, atmospheric pressure and efficiency. We actually want both of those. So the atmospheric efficiency has to do with how much thrust versus drag do you have going on. If that starts topping out at like 200, 300%, you definitely want to slow down. But we're not that high. And you can see the pressure's going way down in kilonewtons per meter squared, so not a lot of pressure. Oh, I forgot to do science on the landing pad. Crap. Okay, we gotta revert this flight. Because we want to do science on the landing pad. You know, I should have 4 of these, because I want to do science on the landing pad, science in low atmosphere, science in upper atmosphere, and then science wherever we land, because that won't be the landing pad. You might think we're going straight up and straight down, but even the rotation of Kerbal is enough that it would be very unlikely to land on the landing pad. So let me pull up. I'm trying to remember the low. Sorry, I'm looking at something in my data. Atmospheric height. Oh, I don't have the low orbit thing here, do I? No, I don't. Dang, okay. So I know I want another readout. I'm just slowly building these up. So body, surface is one that we want. I like to have this down here. And I change a lot of this. So I take out the altitudes because I already have those, well, mainly up here. And I guess I do want altitude above the ground. Altitude terrain. Because sea level is always up here anyway. I do want the biome. Vertical speed, horizontal speed. Slope is handy to have. Mach number I don't care about. Terminal velocities, nice to have. Situations, nice to have. Impact time. Impact biome. And I can take off the... I can take off situation. I don't care about that. And then body, we want the high atmosphere altitude cutoff. Okay. I think that's all I need right here. And then I put this over a little bit because when you have a maneuver, stuff shows up here, so we might have to move it later. But we'll just keep all that there for now. Terminal velocity, or I mean the suicide burn stuff will show up too, so I want that. Where is the suicide burn? Suicide burn, altitude, distance, delta V, and countdown. We'll do delta V, countdown. Yeah, that's all I probably need. Okay, so let's try that out. And again, we need to actually have this with 4. So we're going to go back to the vehicle assembly, building, have it with 4 mystery goos, and then we will hopefully get a bunch of signs from that. Somewhere in the range of 50, maybe? Okay, that looks good. Update the design. I might not have enough fuel to get to high altitude. We'll see about that. All right, this time for real. Okay, landing gear works. Let's fly. Nope, nope, nope. Just kidding. I mean, we might as well test the parachute. Wait, why is deployment in 20 seconds? What on earth? I said deploy now. That's a very strange... I've never had that happen before. I must have had a weird setting. I just want to see if it works. It's a good time to test. So it's only slowing us down to 6.5 because we have a lot of fuel weight. That... Can I just dump that with the TAC fuel balancer? Probably. I don't remember how. But yeah, there we go. It lands. And we can recover the vessel, so... We'll call that a successful mission, even though I didn't do much. Loading times happen. Hey, I got 6 science just to cover a vessel that survived a flight. And we got about 8 grand back. And you can see that our Kerbal 5 only cost 8 grand in the first place, so we pretty much got all our money back. So we'll just launch that vessel again. And try again. This time not forgetting to do science. Alright, science happen. It's because Science Alert didn't make its little bubbly sound at me, you know? Because what you can do is set the alert threshold to be different. If you have not maxed as the default, or less than 50% collected. So like for, can I search in here? Ugh, this is kind of annoying. Display biome and experiment list. That's actually really nice. Enable ScanSat integration. Oh, I don't have ScanSat installed? Well, I need to do that. Track surface sample in vessel. Definitely want to do that. And I will want to do that once I have ScanSat. I must have just forgotten to install it. I love ScanSat. Anyway. So I need to find... Mystery goo. Which... Where even is that? Are these in alphabetical order? JKL. LM. Click-through blocker is useless. I don't understand what the point of that mod is. Like, why is scrolling this up and down, zooming in and out? It just doesn't seem to ever work. I don't know. Regardless, mystery goo, we want to be less than 50% collected. So now it will still trigger here on the launch pad. So I can observe one of them, and I'll keep that, and you can see that the remainder that I didn't get will, you know, work if we recover the craft. So hopefully we can make it to upper atmosphere. This is the one while flying in low atmosphere. It's actually 21,000. I don't know if we're going to get to 21,000. I guess we'll find out. But we may need another launch with an extra couple fuel tanks or a couple solid rocket boosters. You know, more boosters is a well-known strategy in Kerbal Space Program. If something's not doing what you want, you add more boosters. That's it. It's that simple. Our fuel's about halfway gone. I think we might make it. It's 21,000. You can even like click on these so you can like watch your fuel diminish unit by unit, kilogram by kilogram. Okay, apoapsis is far above 21,000. We'll make it. Sweet. Not quite gonna make it into space. but that's okay. We can run another mystery goo. And then I should be able to arm parachute. And it will auto deploy, I think, when those conditions are met we set earlier. I'm going to quick save with F5 just in case that doesn't work right. And I don't really need to see our empty fuel tanks anymore. And yeah, that's it. Let's just throw the landing gear on and speed time up. While we slowly float back down. It's amazing, even though we're not in space yet, how much of the planet we can see. Okay, we are falling. That's good. We didn't go high enough to have to worry about like atmospheric re-entry burning up stuff. So that's also good. And hopefully we're not going to be going too fast. The atmosphere gets denser at this point, so you can see my atmospheric efficiency. It always settles around 100%, because if that's above 100%, that means it's actually going to slow you down. So it'll stay above 100% because gravity's trying to speed us up, but then it starts to slow you back down. So it kind of settles around 100%. I don't know why there's a 20-second deployment delay on this. I want you to deploy now. What is happening? I don't have 20 seconds. We're gonna have to check the settings and why that was like that. But now it should deploy the pre-arming, and that'll slow us down. And then I forget what I set the deployment altitude at. Guess we'll find out. Where it actually fully expands. And then it'll slow us down to like 5 meters a second. It might be 1,000 meters. It's also funny we're not falling straight down. I have no idea why that would be. Our craft is perfectly symmetrical. So why is it tilted like that? I guess the way the aerodynamics are, it wants to go sideways somewhat. I have a little bit of SAS control, so I can try to go straight down. There we go. Yep, 1,000 meters, fully deployed parachute. And now we have a very slow descent. So I'm going to quick save because crazy stuff happens when you speed up time with a parachute. And we're going to speed things up just a little bit. And you can see our sea level altitude does not match up with our terrain altitude because we're above sea level by a little bit. So if we change that to ground, we're much closer. Okay, so then we'll slow down the time warp. And there we go, safe landing. Grab another mystery goo. We'll even grab a telemetry report from Kerbin's lowlands. I should have brought a thermometer. And then we can recover the vessel and we get all that science back. We get most of our money back except for the fuel. And maybe the parachute. I don't know if it charges you for that or not. But most of the money you spend on craft is the engines and the science experiments. Those tend to be the most expensive items. All right, so look at that. We got 53 science total now, 34.5 earned. And yeah, you can see with the parts, our parachute, we did get everything back. Our liquid tank, you know, we didn't get everything back there. Engine, the mystery goo containment units, you know, that was 3,000 of the cost, so. All right, so we need some more science unlocks. We could get radial decouplers, that would help a lot, because then we could put solid rocket boosters on the side. Little reaction wheels allow us to have control in space without monopropellant. I'll have to decide how I feel about that. General rocketry allows for the Reliant, the LVT-30, which is kind of the main rocket engine you use to get to space. We get bigger procedural tanks. That's very nice. And new decouplers, which it's probably not going to let me use for some unknown reason. So I'll definitely do that one. And I guess I can't. These are all 45, aren't they? Yep, so I'll go with this one. And now I have a barometer, which will allow me to get some more science. Early on, these science experiments are kind of the biggest priority because then they allow you to get more science, and then you can snowball a little bit because new science experiments make a big difference. When you make like a moon rover, having 1 or 2 more science experiments to do in every single biome, it just makes a huge difference on the total amount of science that you bring back with you. Okay, so let's see. Coupling. Yep, the decoupler's not there. So I'm going to have to look into that. I have no idea why. So let's modify this to just go into space. So we will have probably the smaller radial decouplers, the 14s. I think 2 of them will suffice. And what I want, let's double check if there's anything else I need. Oh yeah, I have the barometer now. So that works biome dependent based on if you're landed. It works flying low, flying high, space low, space high. So we definitely want one of these. And then we're also going to want a thermometer because we're going into space, which we haven't been that high before. Mystery goo, we're only going to need 1. Potentially for in space low, and 1 for where we land on the surface. So I'm going to drop those down to 2. And then we've already got the parachute set up. Yeah, I think we're good. So now we just need some little solid rocket boosters on the outside here, and that should be enough extra oomph to get us into space. Well, it's not quite as much Delta V as I anticipated. Maybe we use these fat boys. Yeah, 537. Whoa, that is not the way it's supposed to look. What on earth is going on here? Oh, I don't even know what was happening there. There we go. Okay, 537. That is a decent amount. It's not maybe as much as I'd like. Let's try the other decoupler. It sticks out a little bit farther. Because I don't want it to look weird with the landing struts that we have. I guess I could put those in a little bit. That looks more realistic anyway, to be honest. These should probably be like tilted slightly in. And then there we go. Okay, and now I'll put the little ones on because I'll do 4 of them. There's a limit to part count. I can't go past 30 parts. So because of that, I do want to use a bigger booster. I think shrimps, let's see, total fuel is, where is the solid fuel's 90. These have 140. These have 220. Probably can make do with just the flea. They're just really fat. So I'll just do 2 of those. And that's already 31 parts. It's actually too many parts. What can I lose? I think I can lose a single battery because I'm not going to need to transmit anything. Returning it all. So that's it. I can't even fit, what are they called? Little nose cones onto that. So this is the Kerbal 6 because it's going to low space. Hopefully. I think that extra delta V should be enough to get me there. Because we were at 60-something thousand already. So probably just one more fuel tank would have done it, but I wanted to mix up the strategy a little bit. We'll see if it flies straight. I have no idea. Because those are a little bit higher than I would prefer. But yeah, there we go. Look at that. And now we can just fly straight up. I don't know why we're spinning. I guess I don't have a lot of control over spinning because the engine itself is just one engine, so I can't spin based on that gimbaling. And so the only spinning control I have is the probe core with its SAS. Torque. Reaction wheels, that's what they're called. But I think we'll make it into space. That's the hope. So there's an alarm clock app now in the game. People have said it's pretty buggy and doesn't work right, so I plan on not using it. Oh yeah, atmospheric pressure scan. I forgot about that. Shoot. I guess I can afford to transmit that. Alright, apoapsis, we're looking good. I'm actually going to cut it off there. Because I don't want to burn up on re-entry if I put too much power into this. Oh, I forgot to check the parachute thing. Yeah, deployment timer is on 20 seconds. Why is that? Huh. I must have just set that on accident. Okay, well, we'll be in space soon. 85,000. Exit atmosphere in 3, 2, 1. There we go. All right, we're in space. We made it. So we will deploy all of our experiments. Keep. And then when we land, we'll take the containment unit readings. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I guess we can just time warp ahead a little bit. So we hit the atmosphere again. So there's two types of time warps. There's the physics warp and then the physicsless time warp that goes a lot faster when you're in space. I have better time warp installed too, so I can make the numbers even bigger, but for now 4x is good enough. All right, so we do want to arm the parachute. And that will wait until there's a certain pressure before it deploys. A quick save. So we're slowing down now, hitting the denser parts of the atmosphere. It's usually between 10 and 20 kilometers that your craft really slows down to its terminal velocity. And then hopefully this will work. And we're going to land in the water, so that's always fun. Okay, so the deployment timer started. Hopefully we don't hit the ground before then. It's gonna be close. Crap. Deploy, 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 deploy. Gosh. No. Ha! Well, failed mission. Beautiful. Okay, well, we completed our contract. I'll go back to the Space Center. That's really funny. So that deployment timer screwed us over. Couldn't change it once we were in the air, though. Just like real space missions. I'm gonna let that failure continue. If I catch a mistake, that's just like a small thing, I'll just revert the flight, but that kind of thing I usually let happen. Alright, so we made our money because we made it to space. We did not get our science, though. So let's check out our new missions. Establish stable orbit. Okay. This one's also orbit. That's actually just getting a probe into orbit. This one is orbit and return. So getting a probe into orbit, I'm confident I can do. Because we can just launch something straight up, turn it sideways, and then launch it sideways. And that'll work for orbit. So let's go get our science. We are going to launch the Kerbal 6 again. Actually, no, we want to edit the Kerbal 6 because we need to change that deployment timer on the stupid parachute. I don't know why that was set to 20 seconds by default. So let's fix that. There it is, deployment timer. Why is that set to 20? And I still don't understand why I can't move this window, but whatever. That should be like 4 seconds. So what that's saying is 4 seconds of the pre-deployment being pre-deployed before the main deployment will happen. Because pre-deployment, I want to pre-deploy at 10,000. And then we want the deployment speed. That's the amount of time it takes to deploy the full chute. That can also be 4. Deployment altitude, 700 was fine when it worked. Wanted touchdown speed is 4. That's pretty safe. Because you'll notice if I change the touchdown speed, it'll change the overall craft mass. Look at the mass right now. 4456 changes to 4523. And we actually can't get a touchdown speed of 3 because the parachute would have to be too big. Then it can fit in there. So 4 seemed to work fine. We'll stick with that. You know, if I went for 5, watch the delta V. It's 3125 and it goes up to 3190 if I allow for less parachute. But I'd rather be safer. That's plenty of delta V. That's actually too much delta V. But that's fine. So we'll save this design. It's the same design, not worth giving another increment of the title. I was just really fixing the parachute settings. So this time we'll get into space, not make a ton of money, but hopefully bring back enough science for another research technology or two. And we will speed time up this time as well. All right, so we'll start out with our atmospheric pressure scan, which I can transmit. We'll make electric charge back from our engine running. We'll launch, scan at low altitude, transmit again. Get that nice little boost. And then just keep going, straight up. Beautiful. Now, can I... toolbar controller. For science alert, I want that to be on the Blizzy toolbar. And antenna helper. button priority? I don't even know what that does. Oops, I just clicked out of my game. Visible buttons. There we go. Oh, I just heard the solid rocket boosters explode. Normally it sends you a message. Alright, we are set for 120 kilometers. Beautiful. Our electricity's back up to full. I'll speed up time a little bit. No sense waiting around. 75,000, 80,000, and space. Okay, so then I can deploy all my experiments. I could transmit one of them, but there's really no need to, because I'm going to get the same things on the way down. And let's see if TAC Fuel Balancer can jettison fuel. Let's see if we can figure that out. Refunding Fork SP111? What even is that? I have no idea what that is. But liquid and oxidizer. We can select all and highlight, lock, transfer in. There we go. Dump. Select all. Dump. There we go. And liquid fuel. Select all. Dump. Alright, so we dumped all our fuel. Something that probably wouldn't be possible with a normal spacecraft, but that'll allow us to slow down a little bit more. Less likely to crash into the planet itself. Alright, so let's speed time up. Nothing to see here anymore. We've had our fun. This time I expect a safe landing, science recovery, some extra science in the water. It's going to be amazing. Okay. I slow things down a little bit when the atmospheric forces get a little higher. And we can also take off the stability assist. Watching the engine wiggle around, I don't know, it just feels weird. Alright, we're slowing down. Slowing down. I should arm the parachute, I guess. Okay, there we go. Pre-deployment complete. Okay, so that actually is a timer for pre-deployment, not between pre and normal deployment. And then we should see normal deployment at 700. There we go. Slow way down. Holy cow. So much slowing down. This is where I quick save, because this is the most common place for the Kraken, which if you've never played Kerbal Space Program, is the thing, the physics glitches that eat your spacecraft or planes for no reason. The most common place the Kraken eats you is when you actually touch down, for some reason. At least for me, when time warp's higher. And that generally happens with more and more parts. Like, I still have a craft that's less than 30 parts, so the Kraken probably won't eat it, but you never know. I guess the landing gear is useless, because it's just going to fall over on its side anyway. But yeah, there we go. Landing in the ocean. Slow down the time warp before we land. There we go. Nice and easy. Splash over on its side. If you have a really tall rocket, it's actually really dangerous to land in the water because it'll fall over and explode when it falls over. So you actually have to put parachutes on the side so it lands on its side in the first place. Anyway, we'll keep the mystery goo observation from the Northern Sea and recover the vessel. And what do we get? 64 science. Nice. That's awesome. Alright. And we got 7.5 grand back compared to the cost of 9.5 grand, right? Because this time we threw away our solid rocket boosters. We, spent all our fuel. Alright, world's first milestone. We've splashed into the ocean. Let's jump into our research. What would I like? Science is probably a big deal. We can get the next Probodyne thing that allows you to do prograde and retrograde hold, which is pretty handy. I don't know if this one allows you to do prograde. No, just stability assist. So that's nice. You get the Science Junior, which is a great way to collect science. You get some new antennas. Oh, so relay antennas are weird. I don't remember exactly how all that works. Sorry, I had to move something. The relay antennas, you can combine those, and relays can talk to relays, but they don't work with direct antennas as well. I'm trying to remember how that all works. And that's a radial version of the Science Junior. Science Juniors are huge, by the way, because you can see the weight is 200 kilograms, which is just a lot more than a lot of things. Wait, is that not a ScanSat part? I'm so confused. These are ScanSat. And it said I didn't have ScanSat installed. Okay. That's confusing. So these are both altimetry low resolution. Why would you use this one? Because that one is 5 degree field of view, which is a lot more than 1.5 degree. It uses less electricity, 6 per minute. It weighs less at 30 kilograms versus 75. And I think it's smaller, maybe? I don't know if it's smaller. And that one can scan for biomes. The multispectral scanner. And has a maximum altitude of 750 kilometers, field of view 3 degrees. I don't understand the difference between best and max. Why would the max altitude be 750 kilometers, but the best is 210? Because wouldn't it be better to have a bigger field of view? So I don't understand, if you go above 210 kilometers, does it actually start narrowing the field of view again? I don't totally know that. So if you guys know, I'd love to hear it. A lot of new antennas in there. More parachutes, radial mounted parachutes. There's so many different kinds of chutes. I feel like you don't need that many. Okay, so this is for wings and RCS ports. That's handy. Aviation is nice because you get the, what are those called? Fairings. So you can put probes and stuff in a very aerodynamic shell. You get a lot of nose cones, fan blades, wing connectors, intakes. And then we can do general construction, which gives me better procedural decouplers, a service bay, which is nice because you can put science parts inside of it. Struts, launch clamps, and then just bigger rockets. So I can do 2 of these. So my first goal is to get a probe orbiting, and that's it. So for just having a probe orbit, I think, let's see. I don't even know. Liquid hydrogen engines, I don't really need any of those. Liquid methane engine. That's new. I don't remember that existing before. The Terrier is great. That's the one that most people use to land on the moon for the first time. This has a procedural tank upgrade too. Okay, let's just go with rocketry and construction to get the magnetometer. Because that's going to give me more science. And we'll do that next. And then we have launch clamps, which are nice because that things feel weird without launch clamps. Okay, so I've already taken the mission to get a probe into orbit. So that's our only goal. I guess I'll take this one too. We'll make a bunch of money. Establish... Oh wait, no, crap. I have to land again with this one. Well, okay, fine. We'll get there eventually. Alright, so let's see if we can design a little probe that within 30 parts can establish orbit. And then I need to upgrade the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building, to be able to handle more than 30 parts. Okay, so not new folder, new craft. So we'll stick with the same Probodyne. We will now throw a procedural liquid tank on here with an adapter, which is under structural. Diameter. Wait, didn't we get... I swear we unlocked bigger procedural liquid tanks, did we not? Why can that not be longer? Because now we have bigger fuel tanks. These have 180 and 220. Why can't I build procedural tanks that are that big? Yeah, something's janky with the procedural tanks. I'll have to check into that. So we're not going to use those for now. Because I can use these bad boys. I think 2 of those is probably too much. Okay, hold on. All we're trying to do is orbit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little solid booster, a little tiny guy. And he's going to actually establish the orbit once we're in space. So then we're going to need a decoupler. Which again, I don't know why it's stolen all my decouplers. That's unknown to me. Diameter is going to be the 625. And then maybe just one, probably a halfway sized one. That's probably enough. Let's find out. Do the same engine. Oh yeah, that's plenty of delta V to get into orbit, I think. Oh, actually, I have the DV map somewhere. Where is it? Let me find it. It's on my computer. It's in the JNSQ folder, JNSQ DV. It says ascent to 95 kilometers, about 4,900 delta V, which we don't even have yet, and this is not going to be very efficient. So we should actually upgrade to the swivel. I would use the Reliant. Reliant has a better at sea level ISP, but it doesn't have a gimbal. And honestly, a gimbal is a pretty big deal for me. So the Reliant has more thrust and more ISP at sea level. So it's definitely a better use, but we'll get this one. And we'll bump to the next fuel tank. So yeah, we've actually got too much TWR, so we might actually grab a third. This is getting to be a long boy. But that'll definitely make it. Still a cheap cost. Aerodynamics. We'll grab some winglets. So you can see the relative wing area here is only 0.12, whereas this is triple that. So we'll get some stability going. And what else do I need? We need a nose cone. This does have reaction wheels, so he'll be able to turn once we've jettisoned that. So the last thing I need is some communication. 1 million meters should be fine. And how much electricity does this drain? 1.8 per minute. And that doesn't drain anything. So 1.8 per minute means we need some extra electric charge, I think. Oh wait, this has 50. I'm remembering the one which only had 10. So this is 25 minutes. Yeah, that's plenty. Plenty to get into orbit. So I'm not even gonna waste time with batteries. I think things are actually this simple. I don't think I need anything else. So we'll throw the launch clamps on. And yeah, I mean, do I need anything else? I'll fly straight up, decouple, turn sideways, and then at the apoapsis, fire off the solid rocket booster. And that should establish orbit. Okay, so this is a new line of spacecraft. Because the Kerbals were the barely spacefaring craft. This is the first one to enter orbit. So it'll be the... let's see. We'll start with K. Let's think of insects. Let's make it a bee. Try bee. 1. So this is the first one to enter orbit, because bees are small insects. They don't do a whole lot. I mean, they make honey, which is great, but... Do I need anything else? Launch clamps plus engine. Gotta think about my checklist. I actually have a checklist. It says batteries for dark side. That's only for stuff that lands. Electric charge generation, communications, landing gear, separation, science gear, staging. Check yo staging, as Scott Manley would say. I think my staging's good. Okay, we're ready to go. And I don't need science because I've already taken science from space. So this should get into orbit. I do want to be careful to not make my apoapsis too high, because then I won't be able to get into orbit. So I'll need to kind of turn, sort of do a gravity turn, though gravity turn is a more specific phrase than what I'm doing, but as I go up, after I go up for a little while, I'll need to go over. But otherwise, I should be good to launch. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. So let's just go for it. And once we're at about 10 kilometers, then I'll start turning the craft over. Alright, I mean, everything's going the way it's supposed to. Alright, apoapsis continues to go up, 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 and up. As most rockets should. Alright, so we'll start tilting over a little bit. And I can even power down and just hit pro... Oh, wait, no, I can't do prograde, sorry. That would be cheating. I didn't do the right probe core for prograde. I still don't understand why it's allowing me to do all of these. It shouldn't be. I'm wondering if it has something to do with Kerbal Engineer. But I'm watching this apoapsis closely over here. I want it to end up around 100, so we're actually like going way too much up still, because we still have quite a bit of fuel. We have over 1,000 delta V left. Okay, so turning over. I'm just gonna go all the way over to parallel with the ground. A little bit wasteful, but I don't want my apoapsis to get too high. Because if I go too far over and around, by the time I'm at my apoapsis, I won't have connection to the Space Center because of the angle. Okay, but this should be good. 95,000. Looks good. Okay, well, we can disconnect, and then we've just got our little tiny probe to get into orbit. It's really not going to do anything in orbit. Doesn't even have a solar panel, but it'll be in orbit, and that's all that matters. So we'll fast forward a minute ahead till I'm at the apoapsis. Burn time of this next solid rocket is about 50 seconds, so I will want to start burning. And I mean, it's not a perfect curve because we'll get more thrust on the tail end of it, so I should probably start about 30 seconds prior to hitting my apoapsis. Oh, which is right now. So here we go. Here goes nothing. Let's see if this can get us into orbital speed or not. Because I still have some vertical speed, but then on the tail end of me burning this, I'll have some negative vertical speed, so that all cancels out. So hopefully this is enough. It was probably not enough of a margin to make me comfortable, so we'll see what happens. Alright. We have 500 delta V left. Periapsis is coming up, but it's not going to get there. Dang. Not quite good enough. Alright, well, I mean, we've broken speed records and land distance records, so we've at least paid for our flight with that. But this was a failed mission, so that's going to land on somebody's house and they're going to have a bad day. So we'll go back to the Space Center. I'm not going to revert. That's not what I call a revertible failure. That's just a normal failure, which I want to pay the price of. Revertible failures are things where, like, the game lagged and something weird happened, the Kraken happened, I literally just forgot a setting on something. Or if the whole purpose of me launching some... Why are there debris? What on earth? It's supposed to auto-collect the launch clamps. I blame the new patch plus old mods. That's what I blame. Anyway. I'll revert something if it's like, oh, I'm just testing to see how this works real quick, and then I'll revert and change it and stuff like that. But if it's like the legit mission... and it just doesn't quite go the way I want it to, I usually pay the price. Unless, yeah, like I said, there was just some big misunderstanding or something completely didn't even work the way it was supposed to. But yeah, it said I only needed 4,900 delta V. That seems pretty conservative. Did I do something wrong? Is this staging, like, measuring differently than it should have? Oh, I get it. I'm an idiot. This was the vacuum delta V. If you hit atmospheric, you can see the actual delta V that I have at sea level is this. And so a lot of the delta V from my swivel engine was at this lower ISP at 250. And the solid rocket booster definitely has the vacuum ISP, so I'm basically combining 1887 with somewhere around 3,000, because I mean, you know, we do gain some ISP pretty quickly. But definitely not the full 3,500 that I thought I had. So that's what happened there. All right, well, probably an easy fix. How's this work? Is that good? What's that, 47.29 versus 43.79? So an extra 400 delta V at the cost of a lower thrust to weight ratio. What I would consider maybe slightly too low at the start. Low enough that I think... Okay, this will be more than good enough. Because that probably would already get me there. Not entirely certain if that would get me there, but it would get me close. And then if I throw on 2 SRBs, then that will definitely get me there. And let's do sort by mass first of all. So we'll do this one, about a 2-ton booster. We'll do 2 of those. That's off center. There we go. Okay, so that'll add in some extra oomph at the beginning. I'll actually stage it such that we launch all of that at the same time. Generally, it's the most efficient to wait on your liquid fuel, but I want to have a higher TWR to start out with to get off the ground. And then I think we have the parts for nose cone. Yeah, I'm still only at 23 parts. So there we go. So the Crybe 1 was a complete failure. Crybe 2 should be able to reach orbit and complete our contract. It has enough delta V even atmospheric. So we're going to be more than good enough. And I guess since I have some extra parts, it wouldn't hurt to throw just a couple solar panels on here. Let's place them slightly back in. We'll do a fine adjust. There we go. That looks better. So that way this will at least be able to transmit electric charge to and from other craft. Or not electric charge, communications. So it won't run out of electric charge. Might as well make it a little tiny satellite. All right, this is gonna be good. Hopefully less of a failure than the last one. All right, systems are primed. We're doing both engines, both types of engines. Full throttle, SAS, and go. Now that's more like it. TWR of 3. We're going to lose a lot less of our delta V to, I think they call it gravity losses and drag losses. Because the less time you spend fighting gravity, the better, and the less time you spend plowing through the atmosphere, the better. And I'm going to wait until this hits 30,000. Or sorry, the time to apoapsis. Yeah, we'll wait until it hits 30,000, and then we'll slowly tip over. And we'll keep our time to apoapsis constant, I think is the way that I've done gravity turns in the past. Oh, I should jettison these guys. What am I doing? I just wasted a bunch of fuel. It's fun when they run into each other, though. Okay, we'll change to our orbital view. We're already down to pretty low drag, so I'm not worried about that. So we're going to keep flying towards prograde, and I want the time to apoapsis to be about a minute. So we'll do full throttle until that hits a minute. And that kind of keeps our apoapsis far enough ahead of us. And then allows our apoapsis height to end up at about the right place. It depends on the craft and your TWR and your fuel and all that, so it's not always the same formula, but that's kind of my rule of thumb. I'm going to go a little bit more because my apoapsis height is still low, so we're going to keep it at about 1:30. If that time is smaller, then you'll end up with a smaller height at the end of your fuel. So, I mean, yeah, we have pretty much too much. So I'm actually going to waste a little bit of fuel to just make my orbit more circular. By going parallel, it kind of drags down, because right now the path we're taking has us going up a lot more, and if we accelerate this way, it kind of brings this down a tiny bit and brings the back up to make it more in line with the circular shape we want. Man, that other probe was so close to making it. Just didn't quite get there. Yeah, I'm actually gonna like just waste some fuel here trying to fix my orbit shape. I just really like circular orbits, so I kind of want to end with a circular orbit. Alright, so that's a little better. We're going to end up right around 100 kilometers. And we're going a lot faster than last time, so... The only fear I have is losing connection, but I think we'll be okay. Our apoapsis is right here, so we'll be good. Alright, so we can jettison that stage. And fast forward, again, we want to do about 30 seconds before. We want to use 900 of our delta V on the front end, 900 on the back end. I'm going to guess that's about 30 seconds. And we'll just accelerate exactly parallel with Kerbal, also known as Kerbal to some. And hopefully we'll get our nice, perfect circular orbit that doesn't go back into the planet. Oh, I need to hit go. I was dilly-dallying. Alright. This is definitely going to work. We still have over 1,000 delta V left. So, try to angle down just a little bit. I can't stop the solid rocket booster, so our periapsis has now passed our apoapsis, and they've switched, and we have orbit achieved. Wow, we're going to get high space orbit, I think. Sweet. Okay, I actually want Kerbal Engineer surface to also tell me body, low space, high space. Okay, so yeah, we are going to pass into high space with this bad boy, which will probably give us a milestone. Okay, so we lost some stages, I know that. We've entered orbit. Yes, we have. Completion rewards for the contract, and we have some new strategies available. Sweet. Alright. Well, that's successful. We now have a piece of space debris that can transmit communication. And I should probably turn it so that one of those solar panels is towards the sun. We'll return to our space center and move on with our space program. Alright. So I guess the next thing I want to do is orbit and return. That will be a bit tougher because we have to deal with re-entry. And re-entry's pretty... Oh, what is that? Go away. Re-entry's pretty tough. So first of all, unmanned missions. Not ready to fly by min-miss. Orbit a probe and return it safely home. I guess I'll just take the double contract for the same thing. And I could upgrade my vehicle assembly building, or I could upgrade my launch pad. Don't have enough money for both. We'll start with the vehicle assembly so I can do more than 30 parts. I think that's more important. I guess I could upgrade the launch pad. We have enough. I'll only do that if I really need more. Vessel weight is probably the thing that'll pass, or if it's too wide or tall, then I need a better launch pad. But really, it's the number of parts being 30 that really prevents you from a lot of stuff at the beginning. So essentially, I just need to modify this so that it can survive re-entry, deorbit, and land safely. So we're going to need to modify things pretty heavily. So we'll take off this. Actually, I don't want a solid fuel booster. I want a liquid fuel. I want a liquid fuel top. So we'll take off those two pieces. We'll ditch all of that. And instead of a nose cone, we're going to have a parachute anyway. I'll just keep that stuff attached up there for now. So that's the core of what needs to land. We will do a small fuel tank. Wait. Can't go down in diameter? Yeah, something's really weird with these. I think it's trying to emulate vanilla KSP where like you don't actually get small fuel tanks until later, which is like really annoying. Oh, geez, what do I do? What if I change the shape? Will it let me do smaller top and bottom? No, it won't. That's so annoying. Well, okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. Regardless, what's the smallest engine I have? The Pug. So how about a little Pug? And we'll just have to do one of these fuel tanks with an adapter, which is structural. Okay, so that looks like bad delta V until you look at vacuum. And it's like, wow, that's actually a lot of delta V. Am I man enough to... I don't have them yet. Okay. I was gonna say I could do, what are they called? Monopropellant, not omnipropellant. Monopropellant engines to actually do the rotation, like real spacecraft would, but I don't really have the ability to deal with that right now because I don't have any monopropellant stuff. Still need to unlock all of it. So this is 3000 delta V, which is enough. Deorbiting takes a very small amount of delta V, so I don't need to worry about that because I can just stop thrusting as soon as I'm in orbit. And then it only takes about 100 delta V to get out of orbit, maybe 200 or 300. Get it done a little faster. But we are going to need a heat shield. So we have a little bit of a problem there. I might not actually need a heat shield, but we will get... What's my center mass? So center mass... depending on liquid fuel oxidizers, pretty much the same regardless. These things add a ton of weight. And it goes from 1200 to 1500 kilograms. So we can take off some of the ablator. Because we're not going to need that much. So we'll just do, I think about 60 will probably be enough, because we're not going to have a super high-speed re-entry. And I can even, if you make it a shallower angle, it actually uses more ablator, but it ends up heating the whole thing up less. Length, we can reduce a little bit. Will that reduce the weight? No, the weight's still 100 kilograms. Is that based on diameter, probably? Yeah. What's the diameter of that other heat shield that is by default? Only 75 kilograms for that one? Dang. That has 50 ablator? So this is just heavier, for sure. Probably more efficient for larger vessels, less efficient for smaller vessels. And then the question I have is this going to stay this direction? I also need a decoupler. Gosh, 81 kilograms for decoupler? That's so garbage. Because look. Don't save. This is gonna be... Oh, crap. Well, I can make that again. I didn't mean don't save. I more meant save it as a different name. But let's look at the actual decoupler we should have unlocked. Where was it? Here? No. Here. That's the... Yeah, that's the 12. It's 40 kilograms. It's just so silly. I don't know why they're not showing up. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. I'm guessing it's some sort of CFG file somewhere. Okay, this is still here. Good. So we've got that. And what I'd really like to test... Oh, hold on. Being dumb. This should be like so. There we go. That's what I want. So we can turn off the shroud there. So engine, decoupler, and then parachute. So then this is what's actually going to be landing. Parachute can be set to very small numbers. Deployment timer, spare chutes. Touchdown speed 4. Pre-deployment altitude 10. 25k is just too small. 10 to 15k is where it's at. The numpad. Oh, my numlock is off. 10,000 to 500. 4 seconds. I'm not going to be going 100 meters a second, so that should work. Apply settings. Okay, so that's all that needs to land. Perfect. And then with this, the center of mass is right there. Will that... I just don't want this to flip upside down. So what we can do is crash. And we can simulate orbit, planets, Kerbal. We'll have to change it so that they're all unlocked. I don't remember what unlocks the next ones, but like I want to be able to simulate a rover on the moon before I've actually landed on the moon. Because we're just simulating it in the first place, so why should I have to been there to simulate what it's like to be there? I can see what it is, I know what the gravity is, etc., etc. Anyway, let's start at 100-kilometer orbit. And there is a whole... I need to do the settings for this. You can change how the cost works. I don't like having a high cost to this. This feels like something that should just be a part of the game almost already. So I don't like paying a ton to simulate. I'm paying with my time to simulate these things. Although I guess I'm saving time in that I don't actually have to like get this thing into orbit to test if it can re-enter orbit. Or re-enter from orbit. But it's also like in real life I don't want to have to pay game money because I'm spending real life time to do a thing. That is just a simulation. I think you all get what I'm saying. Okay, so here's our little dealy bopper. Does it even have connection? How is it connected? That feels like that should not be connected. I'm surprised it's still connected. Either way, we want retrograde, deorbit, periapsis is plenty low enough. We're gonna arm the parachute. Oh, I just lost connection. That's hilarious. I mean, it's actually not hilarious. Unfortunately, you can't set the latitude and longitude that you start the orbit at. So it starts you at a very arbitrary place on Kerbal. And it's not connected to the Space Center. And I don't have satellites yet to establish connection. So I guess we'll just find out what happens if I didn't even have the heat shielding. And I just happen to have all my fuel left. And nothing's connected or working. Definitely a shallow re-entry angle, which is good, but we'll see what happens. Okay, well, it's heating up. The engine might explode. Okay. Will it explode? A fun game we like to play in KSP. Looks like it's going to. We're very, very close. Not slowing down a ton yet. Okay, the good news is the part that matters is still getting tested. The ablator is definitely decreasing, but we're going to have plenty. And it's self-righting in that I don't need to have any control of the vessel. SAS is still on, but like it goes bottom first, which is what we want. Okay, well that's all I need. Terminate simulation. So I think the way this works is it basically reloads the game, but then it charges you some money. And then you have these messages, but like those stages haven't actually been destroyed. It's very strange. Okay, so that's all good. And now we can start building the rest of it. So we need another decoupler. And this time we've got more fuel tanks, bigger fuel tanks. So that one will finish getting me into orbit. And this one will get me into orbit. Okay, definitely not enough. Do a fourth one. The game has no idea how to stage this properly. There we go. Okay, 5634. That feels... Oh, no, I'm doing it again. There we go. Okay, so that's not enough. So let's see, the difference in the first stage, 2700 to 3400, so 700 less. So I really have about 4900 DV, which is about exactly what I need. So I think if I just add, I'll just add 2 SRBs, and that should get me the rest of the way there. pretty similar to my last craft, actually. And then we'll get some little nose cones on these guys. Yeah, an extra 360 should get me there. Because I'm being conservative in that I'm not giving this stage any more ISP than 250, but it will get above 250 as we, you know, because we're gaining altitude as we're burning the fuel in that first minute and 57 seconds. So it'll be somewhere between 2700 and 3400. So it's not like I'm going to get a full 700... see, 800 less than this. And even if I do get 800 less than this, 5200, almost 5300, that's still spare DV of 400, which should account for however poorly I fly this thing. Okay, so then we'll do some winglets, which actually decrease delta V a significant amount. They're not free. So this is going to orbit and land. So I've got... this will take off. Let me move the whole thing down. Okay, so this will lift off. It'll go straight up. It'll turn over. I'll get my apoapsis. This will finish my orbit. I'll go around an entire time, deorbit, launch, stage this decoupler, and then arm the parachute, and then land. So I think this is all good. The Cry B3 is the first to orbit and land. I should go to the B. You skip to the next multiple of 5 whenever the overall, and I'm just making this up, but whenever the functionality changes significantly. And in this case, the functionality is changing. And I would have the engines work together at the beginning. I'm trying to think of why you wouldn't do that. Why you wouldn't have the engines working together. And I guess one would be if the ISP changes significantly on your engine, which, I mean, mine changes, but not all that much. It goes from 250 to 320. Whereas the solid rocket boosters don't change as much. I'm sure there's all sorts of math equations on how that could be more efficient. But I think just fighting more gravity at the beginning with your thrust is worth a little bit less efficiency later. But I could be wrong. You know, I could always test, like, okay, try flying this where I ignite the engine after the SRBs are done or during. And we could even just go straight up and test the apoapsis. But, all right, so we are going to save the game here as K... I'm going to start calling it K. K pre-orbit. Return. I'll just name them with, like, the mission I'm doing. All right. Am I forgetting anything? I don't think so. Let's go for it. Hopefully this will be a success. Guess we'll find out. Yeah, I mean, even if... get rid of those. Even if we took off the solid rocket, or took fuel out, such that adding in the solid rocket boosters didn't even help our delta V, it would improve our TWR at the beginning, and therefore it would help our delta V in the long run. Okay, so we'll start going sideways a little bit. Slow down a little bit. Switch to the orbit tracker rather than the surface tracker. The reason this switches is because there's already some amount of orbital velocity because of the spinning of Kerbal. So the fact that Kerbal is spinning underneath me changes how those things work. Alright. Slow down a little bit more. I mean, if you keep that around a minute, it works really well. I, unfortunately, don't have the luxury of curving halfway around the planet before I get to my apoapsis, so I'm going to keep it going a little bit harder than I normally would. But the most efficient way is to just keep prograde and keep that time to apoapsis pretty stable. Okay, more stages destroyed. Oh, the Crybe-1 finally deorbited. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there at 100. Unfortunately, I still have 1,000 delta V left in this stage. So I'm going to have to save some of that. That all burns in 20 seconds, and then 2,000 burns in a minute 30. It can be really annoying if your 2 stages left, when you're using some of one and some of the other, have very different thrust-to-weight ratios. But this should be okay. I'll have plenty of time at this apoapsis to finish things out. So I'll probably wait until the time to apoapsis is about 40 seconds, and then we'll thrust again. This has a gimbal, so I don't have to worry about turning. Does this have a gimbal? I didn't look at that. Ooh, it might not. Hopefully the reactor wheels are good enough in that. Okay, so we're at 40 seconds. So we'll kind of begin our parallel burn. It's not an injection or ejection, it's just a orbital insertion burn. Okay, good stuff. There we go. And look at this thing, it's so cute. It kind of looks like a little bee. It's got yellow and black. That's fun. Alright, so what are we at? Periapsis still has a lot to come up, so I'm gonna... It might have waited slightly too long. I'm gonna give myself a 10-degree above the horizon angle. Okay, good. So our time to apoapsis is remaining constant. And so I can kind of just play the field, reduce my angle until that decreases, increase my angle, keep that constant at about 10 to 15 seconds. What's scary is when your time to apoapsis is decreasing faster than you can fight it, and then you know you're gonna like start going down while you're trying to go sideways, and you don't want to do too much of that when your altitude's already what you want. It's okay to have a little bit, of course, but... Alright, so we're almost there. Periapsis, just gotta get above 85. There we go. We're in orbit. Success. Hooray! No achievements, though, because we've already done that. So now we are going to... I guess we could just deorbit right here. Right? Contract. Achieve orbit returned. Land or splashdown. Yep. Okay, so let's arm the parachute. We'll quick save first. Arm the parachute. Turn around. And deorbit. You can see the reaction wheels work pretty well when the whole craft only weighs 800 kilograms. Alright, drop our periapsis down to negative 200. So that's a fairly shallow, but not too steep. I mean, honestly, I might as well just... I've got plenty of ablator, so let's just finish out the fuel. Make this process a little faster. I can almost land on the island airfield. Okay, and then we should just be able to jettison, turn off SAS, Parachute's armed, and we should just be able to watch the rest of this thing happen. So we will descend. Probably lose connection soon, maybe? No, I'm not even going to lose connection. We're still really close. Does it connect to the airfield? Or no, it's connecting to the Kerbal Space Center. It's right there. Okay. So we should see this kind of automatically pointing towards retrograde because of the way the air resistance will turn me. Atmospheric pressure at 1% of a kilonewton meter squared. But it's amazing how much that tiny amount of pressure at 3 kilometers a second can hurt. But this thing can take it. I'm not sure exactly how this part works. It probably spins a blader to reduce the temperature. Like, gameplay-wise, it's probably just a normal part that as the part heats up, it starts to drop a blader and keeps the temp down. That's my guess, at least. But we're already slowing down. We're down to 2200, so we'll be fine. Alright, there we go. We've reached a much more peaceful temperature. And it looks like we'll land on this little continent. I don't know where we are exactly. Terminal velocity is pretty friendly at almost like 200 meters a second. And our pre-deployment has begun. That'll slow us down. It'll fully deploy with 500 meters left to go. On the terrain altitude, that is. I should probably switch that. Slow our time warp. There we go. Deployment happening. Speed drops down to 4.8. That's probably because the ablator, it wasn't factoring in the mass of the ablator. Because that's technically wet mass. And I think I had dry mass selected. So if I were able to get rid of all that ablator, then I think I would be at the 4 meters per second, or at least closer to 4. All right, 90, 80, 70, 60, let's go. And touchdown. Bam. All right, so world's first milestone. We've returned to the surface from orbit, completed 2 contracts, new strategies available, and we can recover the probe. So, I mean, we have really begun our space station. We've already done many years of real-life stuff. Although it still blows my mind is there was only like 60 years between the first manned flight ever with the Wright brothers and landing on the moon. That's pretty fast progress. Alright, so what do we get? Probably a little bit of science. I'm guessing. Yeah, 12 science for that. Okay, so we've unlocked some more stuff. I can get the next tier of launch pad. I definitely want the tracking station for patched conics that lets you see what maneuvers are going to do, and then you want the mission control upgrade so that you can actually plan maneuvers. So you really need both of those, which I have only 2,000 extra funding to go past, so we're not going to do that for a moment. That one lets you place flags, which is important. That gets you more strategies. And then this upgrade lets you get surface samples, which is a huge amount of science once you do a manned mission to the moon. So we're probably going to want to do one of these first, probably Minmus probes. Minmus is actually easier to get to than Kerbin. Delta V wise, Minmus is about the same transfer delta V as the moon, but the capture is a lot smaller. And the ascent is even smaller still. So landing a probe on Minmus is fairly cheap in terms of delta V. These give you a bonus to KSC science if I was to collect science around the base. I mean, that one's free to set up, so I could make a little science rover around the Kerbal Space Center. Might do that. Do I even have wheels, though? Because sometimes I'll do that, make a little rover that drives around and grabs mystery goo samples, because each building at the Kerbal Space Center is technically a different biome, and so you can get a ton of science that way. But do I even have wheels? No, I don't. So that's not really possible. Not possible until I have wheels. All right, so I can get another research actually. Do I want fairings and plane stuff? I'm more into rockets than planes in general. Do I want little RCS thrusters? Do I want bigger heat shield? Probably want this one for the different antennas. Oh, and the experiment return unit is really nice because it can collect. It's shaped nicely and it can easily just collect all of the science from the other pieces, which you can then ditch. So I'll do this one. And we don't have any contracts right now, so we need to check out what's optional. Space tourism, unmanned Minmus flyby. I'm not ready for that. Rover deployment. Kerbal in space, explore moon, explore Minmus. Satellite. So these are trickier in that they have very particular needs. This one's not super high. These other ones are a lot higher up. Although 4 million and 44 million might not actually be that different of a delta V cost. Because an orbit of 100 kilometers is a lot different than an orbit of 4 million meters. So I'm probably not going to be able to do that either. So what do I actually do? Scan sat. Did I not just unlock those parts? Oh, do I have to pay for them to be able to do that? Probably. Let's unlock that one. Still not showing up. Anyway, what can I do? I feel like these are messed up. I feel like JNSQ was supposed to change these around and they didn't. Or it didn't. Fly by the moon, land on the moon, return home. Yeah, that's a lot harder than it sounds. Minmus, bit easier. For some reason that gives you more money. I don't understand that because Minmus is easier to do. Let's start with seeing if we can design a probe that will maintain connection over Kerbin geosynchronously. I don't even remember what geosynchronous height is because it's different. Oh, there it is. 8968.11 kilometers. And according to the calculation sheet, let's pull that up. So 8, 9, what was it? I feel like that number's actually around here somewhere. Is it not? Is it in here? Solar day, rotation period, orbit period. I don't see geosynchronous orbit anywhere. I swear I had that somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Maybe I didn't. Okay, well, regardless, it's telling me... Oh, I guess I could just get the orbital period to match the day length. Right? Is that what that is? Oh, I'm looking at Moho. Kerbal is here. Wow. The sidereal rotation period is 1 day. Never would have guessed that. And I forget which one you're supposed to line it up to. Solar day or the SRP. So 43,200. Let's try 8968.11. 8968.110 meters. So that would get us to an orbital period of 43,082 seconds. Huh. Which is actually smaller than both of those. That sounds wrong. 8968.11. Anyway, it's 1930 delta V on top of getting into orbit. So we need about 7,000 overall delta V to get into geosynchronous orbit. Still a little confused why that's 43,082. Because if it matched the solar day, it would be even longer than this. And this is already 43,200. So something feels slightly off, but I don't know what it is. 8968.11 kilometers above point mass, I believe this number is. So it's not like that's off by... At least I don't think it's off. Yeah, because this is adding half of F5. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure that that number is supposed to be the actual altitude above the sea level, rather than the distance away from, like, the center of Kerbal. It's been a while since I've used my own calculations. So that number matches, because if this is 95, delta V map is telling me 1935, which this is exactly 1935. But the orbital period that we'll have ends up being 43,082, which is not exactly 1 day. Maybe... I wonder if it's that divided by that. What's 43,200 divided by 1.03? Ooh, it is 43,070. I get it. Okay, so it's the SRP divided by the solar day multiplied by the SRP. Gives you the actual orbital time you want to have to be in geosynchronous. Okay, cool. So I need like a 7,000 delta V probe. And we're going to go with this better one. The difference is more electric charge and a similar electric charge usage. Reaction wheels. This one has slightly better reaction wheels. And that's about it. It has 6 sides instead of 8. Cool. Okay, so antennas. Excuse me. We need I still don't totally understand what relay does. Versus direct. Oh, wait a second. I think I've had it backwards the whole time. I need relay. Direct can only connect from the craft you're controlling, the craft that has the direct antenna, directly to the Kerbal Space Center. Or a relay. But you cannot connect from a direct antenna to another direct craft to the Space Center. So direct is only for the like final hop, so to speak, the first hop. So we actually need this to have relays. I'm glad I remembered that. And I'm like 90% sure I remembered that correctly. So these have a relay of 20 million. Let's just start with 3 and see what that gets us on our antenna helper. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to take off the calculations here. Okay, so antenna helper, where'd you go? It's gone. Am I making that up? Oh. Well, where is the Blizzy toolbar? Oh, it's right here. It's hiding. There we go. I like haven't seen that the whole time. Let's just drag this like up here. Okay, there we go. So antenna helper. So we want relay. What do you mean no antenna? There we go. 3 of 3 antennas are combinable. Power is overall 46 million. Max range 301 million, but that's to the KSC, so signal strength per distance. Okay, so it would be nice to get to the moon with this. Check the signal strength at a given distance. Huh. So we would be able to get to Minmus with this thing. What's Minmus's orbit? Minmus's orbit is... Wait, that doesn't sound right. Oh, it's... Sorry, it's comparing a different thing. It's between 140 and 150 million meters. Megameters. So... Ideally, this power would be, like, enough to get there. But it's probably not going to be. But if this is more powerful, then another ship can have direct with... What's that one? Oh, relay 20 million. What's the biggest direct one that I have? 4 million. Ugh. We still don't have a lot. And these ones, you can point them at like a reflector to add effectiveness to it, but that's, at least in my experience, not been super effective. So Minmus is going to need a lot of antennas. Now these are 4 million combinability 1. That's really strong, so I could put like 10 of them on there and then it would have a range of 40 million. So I'll probably just end up using a bunch of communotrons. As far as science goes, these are not great at 9 charge. Bandwidth 5.71. They're pretty fast though. So I guess I'll settle for that in terms of antennas. I will want plenty of electric charge. Let's see. A nose cone. Still don't have the small fuel tanks, which I'm gonna need to switch to. I don't have any small engines either, though, I guess, so that's fine. So we'll have to move those somewhere else. And we'll do the same thing, little fuel tank. Put our antennas here. That gets me a delta V of 1923. I can probably do better. Yeah, 2692. Usually I feel like when you can double your fuel weight but get about 50% more delta V, that's almost always worth it to not. Unless it drops your TWR way too low. That helps a lot. Because now this thing has a ton of delta V. We said it was 1900 something to get up to where we need to be. So this will do that almost by itself. So we just need to get this into orbit and then it'll be good to go. However, we don't have great solar panels. I think I'm gonna put 12 solar panels, and the reason is so that we can angle these slightly, and then angle these slightly, and then it'll get sun no matter which way it's facing. Probably don't need that many. Is that too many? That's probably too many solar panels. How much do that cost? Ah, it doesn't matter. They only cost 75. Alright, so that's the thing. We're gonna put that in geosynchronous orbit. And I need a decoupler. And then I need fuel. And then we need an engine. Probably gonna need more fuel. I'm just trying to figure out, should I do a Terrier? Wait a second, a Pug is horrible. Why does that even exist? It has a bunch less thrust. It's only a tiny bit, it's the same size. I guess the size is what I was thinking the Pug was smaller in, but it's not really smaller. I guess it's a tiny bit shorter. But if we look at the delta V here, we got 1947, and this is only, oh wait, I've done something wrong. Was that only 1947? Am I reading something backwards? Mass. What? This has a higher ISP and barely more mass. How is the delta V that different? Am I underestimating how much that 100 kilograms is changing things? Okay, let me just add something that weighs 100 kilograms. This thing. So one of these. Yeah, that only drops it down to 2372. So this should be better than that, and it's not. What is happening? Something's backwards. What is happening? The ISP is higher. So it should be more fuel efficient. But the delta V is less. What is happening? I am really confused. Like, something's very weird with this. I've played a lot of KSP, like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Because this engine, does it use, like, fuel in a different ratio or something crazy? I don't think so. I mean, it never has before. And the ISP is 345 in a vacuum. And this is only 330 in a vacuum. So, even though it's a little heavier, we should get more efficiency out of our fuel. Something is super weird. I don't know what it is. 1947. How is it that low? Oh. I get it. Okay. Gosh. Sorry, everybody. That took me a while. The Pug does not weigh 400 kilograms. It has fuel in it. So if we take the fuel out, it's only 200 kilograms, which is significantly different. Okay. Well, that explains that. Sorry if you were yelling at your screen. So I'll leave the Pug, because 200 kilograms is a lot lighter than 500. I just thought they were a lot closer together, and then it was going to be worth it to just use the 909 at that point. Could use the 909 on that one, and that could be my finish orbiting engine. And then we just kind of need to get this up into space. So we'll take some radial decouplers, and I think just some good solid rocket boosters with a gimbal will actually do the trick. These have a vectoring range. These have a vectoring range of 3. The mass is pretty big though. That would be, each one of those matches the mass of the craft it's lifting, which is probably overkill. These are about half. It's just the gimbal range is not very much, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to turn over as much as I want to. 1637. It's actually not quite enough. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here. So it's 5,000 to get into orbit. So this is gonna finish my orbit. We have to do a good start to get there. Maybe I should just put these thumpers on there. I mean, it's a much better number, but I'm overweight. I can only get 18 tons. I have the money. I'll probably just pay for the weight boost, the landing pad upgrade. And then I will put nose cones on these bad boys. Let's see, type A. 30 kilograms. 75 kilograms, no thanks. Okay. So this should be able to get that thing up into geosynchronous orbit. I hope. 7,000. Let me go back to the calc. It's 1935 plus 4,900. That's 6835 is the recommended amount. So if we take solid rocket boosters, take off 400, because they'll be at atmospheric, then we're at 7022. Which is technically a little bit more than I need, but that's not enough comfort for me, so I'm gonna drop another fuel tank. We'll drop a 200 in here. And that gives me another 200 in space, and that feels like enough. Okay. So then we need... do I need aerodynamics? I don't think I will for this. We'll find out. And we'll get some... launch clamps, and we'll auto strut to root part those guys. Keep everything held together. This is going to be the, let's see, stink bug. This will be my first satellite. So we will change it to relay. Alright, save, and let's launch. Oh, right. Well, first we'll leave, upgrade the Space Center, and then launch. But yeah, I think after this launch I'll be done for the day. Upgrade launch pad. Stink bug. See, why are there two of these? I don't understand. It's the same thing. Ugh. All right, full throttle. Let's do this. Wow. Why are those not making a noise? Nice game, everybody. Wow. Okay, well, who knows? But we'll slowly turn over. This is not as stable as I hoped it would be. Also, I forgot to manage my TWR. It might actually be too big. Oh my gosh, this thing is squirrely. I might need some fans. Overall, though, that actually wasn't that bad. Still have no idea why there's no sound on all that. Ooh, okay. We're still a little too low for me to have lost all aerodynamic strength. Okay. Well, we need to change some things, that's for sure. All right, I might need to just head out. I don't know if I'll be able to finish this mission. So because the stability still needs to occur, I'm gonna try just some basic fins. They're down far enough that that might make a difference. It also might make zero difference, but I hope it will. And then I also need to drop the TWR just a little bit on these guys. We'll start at like 2.5 rather than 3.12. Because then they just have such a high TWR at the end. Alright, well I'll save that, and next time I stream, we will get this guy into geosynchronous orbit. So, thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoy this, make sure you leave a comment and let me know what you thought. I'll see you guys all next time.